Present.
Thank you. And now let's all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, with liberty and justice for all. Right, that too.
I don't know what happened.
I like the justice part.
I was like, oh, I screwed it up. The first meeting, I was like,
All
I
right,
did so long.
let's move
since I
on to
did
the
it, I
approval of the
practiced.
agenda, please.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
We have a motion from Director Spear with a second from Director Heidman. Any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you very much. This meeting of the Brainerd School Board is being conducted in accordance with Minnesota Statute 13D02. This meeting is being recorded. Access to the recording is available on the school district's YouTube channel. And now we'll bring up Marcy, who's already up here, for the public hearing for truth and taxation for the 2024 payable 2025 tax levy.
Good evening, everyone. I know this is always your favorite topic, so I'll jump right in. Tonight's agenda does cover our requirements for a public meeting during the time frame. We will go over the current year budget and the proposed tax levy, and then we will go through, you guys will approve after the public hearing. So the hearing agenda will go a little background on the information on school funding, though we'll talk about the district's budget, and then we'll talk about the proposed tax levy, and then we'll have some time for public comments. And just to note, there are 2 public comments. So this first part is just strictly on the tax hearing, and then there will be the public comment after that for other comments.
Sure.
Yeah, Director Hyman.
Question.
Yeah.
Marcia, we'll be able to ask questions as you're going through the presentation as a
Absolutely.
board
Yep,
and not have to wait till the end?
you can ask whenever you need to.
Thank you.
No problem. So the Minnesota legislature sets the funding for Minnesota public schools. They set the formulas and the tax policy for this. The district can levy less, but we cannot levy more than those limits unless there's an operating or capital referendum approved by the voters. So this chart shows you what the formula looks like compared to inflation, and you can see that we have not kept up with inflation. This is not a new chart. We've gone over this every year. The state continues to try to make adjustments, but it still is lacking. So if we were to see an increase that matched inflation, the formula would have to go up by that $1,364. So just an FYI. 25-26 obviously is a to be determined because the legislature will start meeting in the upcoming months to determine what that formula amount will be. So you've also heard several times that there's underfunding in special ed. The cross subsidy for 22-23 for Brainerd School District was about $6.8 million. That's cross subsidy means the same thing as underfunding and special ed. They coincide, they're the same terms. But however, there was a change where we were getting cross subsidy aid of 0.06, and that did increase to 0.44. We still are underfunded, though. That was a big change from the prior year to the current year. However, we still are underfunded by about almost $3 million. 3.8, excuse me.
That's for 24?
That was for 22-23. So this graph just is depicting other comparable districts that are comparable in, we talked about this at the Finance Committee, comparable in demographics, more so than necessarily ADMs or our size. Some of them are comparable in size, but not all. And this is any district that has an operating or capital referendum. The blue is capital and the orange is red. So you can see there are a couple districts on there that.
So those are more like region centers, just like we are, like regional centers.
Correct.
Rather than comparing the smaller districts around us and,
Yes.
you know, others that are metro our size or whatever. This is more of a true picture.
Correct. Correct. And you can see on there that we do not currently have an operating referendum in place. And the smallest district on there is Detroit Lakes, and the largest district on there is Moorhead. Just an FYI if you were curious. The budget information, so this is a list of the current funds we have at our district. There's restrictions for each of the funds, but the levy really only impacts the general fund, the community service fund, and the debt service fund. And then this slide is a summary of our 24-25 budget by fund balance. You can see, and I'll talk about it later in the presentation as well, but we're different than other municipalities in that we are presenting tonight on the 24-25 budget, but the levy that you will be approving is actually for the 25-26 budget. And with counties and cities, they will be presenting on the levy, and it will impact the budget that they are also presenting.
Marcy,
Yeah,
food service? We get free food, right? And that was part of the, okay. I see revenues in and expenditures out. How come we're 326,000 in debt? How does
so,
that happen under a free food program?
so we get reimbursed per meal, and our costs can exceed that per meal amount, whether it's staff or food expenses. The state sets how much we are reimbursed for those meals.
So we're serving meals that are more expensive than what we're getting reimbursed for.
And if the food service director were here, she would tell you that that's a planned. Food service is not supposed to have a profit. In fact, they have a surplus in their fund balance. I shouldn't say a surplus. They have a healthy fund balance. So eating away at that is okay, because if we continue to have a surplus, the MDE comes back and actually makes us correct that. So,
Make us spend it, in other words?
yes,
And just to clarify, you can't spend that anywhere else.
correct. Thank you.
Then on the very bottom, total all funds, we 6 million debt?
So the OPEB trust, we're going to continue to draw down. So that one you will see eventually go away. And that's almost 1.4 million of it.
What is that?
That's where we issued debt to create this trust, and then we pay our other post-retirement employment benefits. So as people retire, we're spending that down. Eventually, when that is gone, we'll have to talk about a levy. There is a levy for those benefits as well. But for right now, we're just using up that trust.
So we're really, so you're saying is we're really not 6 million in the ditch because we're taking 3 million of it, is that from another old type thing?
Correct. And same with the construction fund. I mean, it's not millions, but it's 700,000. We're eating away and spending those funds down too.
Thank you.
Is community service, is that community ed?
Yes. Same thing.
So we're 350 in the tank on that.
Any other questions on that one? Good questions.
Can we keep the money from the debt service?
We can only use it for debt payments. That's it.
So then do you just take the extra and just knock down the principal?
Part of this levy is when we get to having over, I believe, 10%, they will automatically do an adjustment and take it away from us.
The state will
state.
take it back? Can we pay down principal with it?
Good question. I have not heard of that before.
Well, you know me,
Yeah,
be a little creative here.
out of the box, right?
I think we should try. I mean, why not?
Yeah, I can ask that question. So this graph is a revenue of all funds. The levy makes up 23.6%. You can see it's broken out by fund. The 7.1% increase that's being presented tonight represents 1.6% of all the revenues budgeted. And again, it won't represent that of the budget that it actually will go into, but that's what we're presenting tonight. The general fund revenue, the biggest difference from current year to last year, or what's being presented, is the federal went down 3.4%. You guys know that that is mainly because of the CARES funds. And then state was up 2.9%. So that's the biggest fluctuations compared to last year for revenues. The general fund by expenditures by object, so that object means what are we spending our money on? 80.4% of that is salary and benefits. You've heard multiple times we're in the people business, right? And that's our people, is the salary and benefits. There's no significant changes from prior year on this graph. We're winding down on construction and all those things, so we're starting to see not so many swings.
What's the other, Marcy?
The other, good question, dues, fees, licenses. Trying to think what else is in that category.
Thank you.
Yeah. And then this is expenditures by program. So what are we spending our funds on? 81.1% of that is on instructional support services. So when you add up all the ones that say instruction or support, and then you can see the other categories are sites and buildings, other, administration, and district support services.
Do you have an approximate number under the regular instruction, approximate student count versus student count for special ed instruction?
You want to know how much that is per pupil?
No, just curious.
Just
how
the
many-
ratio?
Just the,
Roughly
how many
75,
kids?
25,
How many
isn't it?
kids? How many kids are under the regular instruction expenditure versus special ed?
I'd have to pull the numbers, but I believe
Okay.
last year we were around 20% sped. So if we have, 6,000 in enrollment,
1,200.
don't quote me on that though.
What is pupil support services?
Well, I think you're pretty close, Marcy.
The big chunk of that is food service.
Oh,
So changes in the levy do not determine change in budget. If the state changes a formula where maybe there's more state aid versus levy or flop that, that doesn't mean that the district is going to generate more revenue. It just means that the state will pay less or the taxpayers will pay more.
well, the taxpayers are paying the state too, so taxpayers are paying more no matter what. That's only where the money comes from, the taxpayers. State doesn't have any money.
But if you look at it as a dollar figure, if we get $100 and the state changes on a formula that they'll pay 20% instead of 10, we're still gonna get $100. It's not gonna give us more money. So the difference in cycle levels, levy cycles, excuse me, I touched on that already. This is going to affect the 25-26 budget, which we will be working on in the upcoming months. And I think that's all I had on that one. And then this is a sample tax statement, so it'll show you what your proposed taxes are compared to last year, and then the meeting time, dates, and locations for the public hearing. I'm sure you've all seen these statements. And I touched on this already, but the MDE calculates what the limits are. That's all handled by them. It's not anything that I pull a report, but they do all the calculations. The property tax process, step one, the county sends valuation notices in the spring. And then all these other steps, we really have no control over, the legislature or the county. The only thing we have control over is when we set that levy on step 5. And this is a timeline of September 8th was the first draft of the levy and to where we are tonight. So the proposed tax levy is an increase of about 1.9 million or 7.1%. And the proposed levy in September was 6.84%, so it is slightly higher just based on adjustments that happen after the September meeting when it was approved. And then this is a breakdown by fund, so you can see that the general fund's going up about almost 45%, and the debt service fund is going down 14%. And I'll talk more about those changes in the upcoming slides. So in the general fund, the operating capital is going up about 175,000. And that is kind of what I had talked about before, where it's a change in the levy and aid calculation. So more, because of the change in market value, is going to be on the levy versus state aid. The next big chunk of increase is the long-term facilities maintenance. We've talked about this several times. We now qualify for the 1A funding. So that went up about 3.5 million in the general fund. And then there is also a change in the debt service, which offsets that increase.
So that was the increase that was triggered by the increase in square footage?
You got it.
Okay.
And then the general fund with prior year adjustments was about 425,000. So a lot of the calculations on the levy are based on estimates. And then when the actuals come in, the state does adjustments to correct what was prior levied. And that's a reflection of the 425,000. So factors that impact the individual school's taxes, a lot of times people will question, why are my taxes going up? And it can be because their market value is going up. It could be that the total value in the district is going up. If we have new construction, new builds being added to the market value in the county. There's also the changes in the state formulas that can impact that. If there were voter-approved referendums added, that's another factor that will change your taxes. And this is just an example of how property valuations can have an impact on taxes, but not necessarily the district's budget. So this is two properties. They're valued at the same. They both would pay $250 in taxes. The orange value goes up by 10%, the blue house goes down by 25%. So the total levy is still $500, but the orange house will pay less and the blue house will pay more based on the change in market value. There were some legislative changes that would affect taxes as well this year. There was a change in the homestead inclusion and the ag homestead as well. So when we look at four-year school levy in the upcoming slides, there's going to be slides that show no change in value and then a 45.9% increase, which is what actually happened. And then the final amounts could change as well after our presentation. Not by a lot, but just an FYI. So this is a slide showing what the property values, or excuse me, what the taxes would be if there were no change in property values. So a $375,000 home would have saw a $17 increase in their taxes if there were no change in property values. Then this is another graph that shows those same districts, what the taxes payable are on a market value of $375,000 for a residential home. You can see we are on the lower end of that. The highest being Northfield is with that capital and operating referendum, they're paying almost $2,000 in taxes on that value of a home.
Marcy, can you share, why we're using $375,000 as the estimated market value?
Yeah, so when Ellers provides a lot of this data, and when I complete the questionnaire, you can say, give me the average priced home. So 375,000 was the average that they used.
Versus when we did the blueprint, what was it then?
It was almost 100, it was, or I shouldn't say almost, it was only 152,000.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Why is there a difference? I mean, this might be really a dumb question, but I hate making dumb mistakes. Why is there a difference in taxes paid between these school districts?
Lots of factors. So for example,
But it has nothing to do with how many homes in Northfield are valued at $375,000.
It has to do with property value. It has to do with whether or not they have a referendum. It has to do with what other state aids they qualify for. So there's a lot of factors in those numbers.
So let's take Bemidji. I don't think they have a referendum. I know Detroit Lakes doesn't.
Right.
So you're at $952 and we're at $1,026. So what would make us get the extra $76 a kid?
We may qualify for other categories that they do not. For example, there's sparsity, transportation aid. There's a lot of different categories, and certain districts qualify for certain things. We don't all qualify for the same thing.
So this is what an individual in our school district is gonna pay on a $375,000 house. That much is going to the school.
You got it.
And the rest is the county and this, da-da-da-da. Gotcha.
One of the other things that plays into this, as Marcy alluded to, our district's 514 square miles. So sparsity, travel and everything else is different than other smaller sized districts.
Sure.
I mean, this is so complicated in the math side of things. We're lucky to have her because this is, this is kind of like, you throw a bunch of dice up in the air and you hope they all land on 6, and none of them are going to. So it's, and I made that a comment a month or two ago about it's the same thing. And gallon of gas a week ago was 17 cents cheaper than here in Crosby.
Right.
You can't, there's no rationale to it other than they make a decision, we make a decision. And there might be a tax in one city that doesn't have a tax in another city. So that it gets really complicated. So it's, even though we'd like to think we're all equal, none of us are equal.
There's no such thing as equal.
Pardon?
There's really no such thing as equal.
Yeah, right.
So this next slide is same thing, comparable districts, only it's on the homestead acre for a value of 6,000. So we're the second lowest on that as well.
Part of that too, Marcia, is that the amount of ag property within those regional cities too.
You got it. Yep. So this next slide compares taxes from 2022 to 25 if there were no changes in property value. And you can see that the taxes actually go down. And this is for residential and commercial. And then same for ag and seasonal rec. And then this is based on the cumulative changes that actually happened. So you can see taxes are going up based on that $375,000 residential home and then a $250,000 commercial. So after this, the board would accept public comments on the proposed levy and then certify that amount. Are there any questions?
No, we would just open it up. There weren't any public comment cards for this section of the meeting or this levy discussion. So at this time, if anybody does have public comment, you can come forward and make public comment about the tax levy piece that Marcy just presented on. Okay, I don't see anybody coming up. Thank you very much, Marcy.
Mr. Chair, I would note that in today's Brainerd Dispatch, in 2004, 20 years ago, it was noted in the dispatch that there was a $3 million shortfall, and they were looking at significant cuts within the budget at that as well. So my point is, as Marcy indicated, we go back a long ways to get equitable funding for education, public education. And, 20 years ago, they were doing the same thing that we're looking at. So it just hasn't kept up with inflation, period.
Any other board comments or discussion? If not, then I'll read the resolution. Approval of the final certified tax levy for 2024 taxes payable in 2025. Whereas pursuant to Minnesota statutes, the School Board of Independent School District Number 181, Brainerd, Minnesota, is authorized to make the following proposed tax levies for general purposes. General, 13 million and change, as you can see there. Community service, 637,000 and change. General debt service, 14,305,000 and change, for an overall total proposed tax levy of $28,326,394.97. Now therefore, be it resolved by the School Board of Independent School District Number 181, Brainerd, Minnesota, that the amount to be levied in 2024 and collected in 2025 is set at $28,326,394.97. This is an increase of 7.05%. And we will do a roll call vote, please. Kelly?
Michelle Brecken,
Yes.
BJ Dunleer,
Yes.
Randy Heidman,
Yes.
Sarah Spear,
Yes.
John Ward,
Yes.
Kevin Boyle,
Yes.
all in favor.
Do you need a motion for that?
No, it's a resolution. We don't need a motion. Or do we need a motion for that? Maybe we did.
Says
I guess we do need a motion to, so let's go back and do the motion. I'm sorry. I was so worried about the roll call that I didn't get a motion.
The resolution. Motion.
Yep.
I'll second.
All right, so we have the motion from Director Ward. Thanks for catching that, Kelly. And the second from Director Brecken, and we've already done the roll call vote following up that. Thanks for catching that, Sarah. Yep. All right, we'll move along with recognitions. Maybe I'll start this off with the first one, and I'll pass it over to Director Spear and perhaps to Superintendent Grant then. In collaboration with the Nisswa Lions, Molly Rasky is proud to announce the inaugural Lions Pride Award. This prestigious honor celebrates a student who exemplifies outstanding character and embodies the Lions' We Serve spirit. We are proud to announce the 24-25 Lions Pride Award recipient, Talia Badowski. Congratulations, Talia.
Awesome. Congratulations to Nisswa Elementary's November Character Award winners. The following students exemplified the importance of being respectful. Carter Ziegler, Brecken Roach, Ella Wright, Calvin Clabo, Brecken Ubel, Rory Nelson, Aiden Washington, Reeve Grams, Bodie Larson, Bryn Johns, Paige Hess, Jack Barsness, Superior Bachman, Easton Cutter, Abigail Lendway, Jackson Wagmeister, Ava Grams, Finn Peterson, Claire Nicholson, Landon Walton, Sam Vernon, and Ellie Marsh. Congratulations.
Thank you, Director Spear. Peter, you want to
Sure.
tackle the next one?
Congratulations to the Warrior Girls Swimming and Diving Team for the following accolades. Section 8AA Team Champions, Dan Anderson, Section 8AA Coach of the Year, MSHSL, Class AA 7th Place Team Finish, 50 free Maya Togs, State Champion, second ever in program history, All-American Time, Isabel Plouffe, 16th place. 100 free Maya Togs, third place, Isabel Plouffe, 13th place. 200 free relay, Avery Durer, Erilyn Marcello, Isabel Plouffe, Maya Toges, second place, All-American Time. 100 breaststroke, Avery Durer, 8th place. 400 free relay, Avery Durer, Erilyn Marcello, Isabel Plouffe, Maya Toches, 6th place.
Thank you. All right, we'll move along to public input. A member of the public can address the board during this time. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes. Complaints or allegations against students or employees may not be discussed due to data privacy. Complaints or allegations must be submitted in writing to Superintendent Grant. The Board of Education and Superintendent will not converse with guests to address the topics discussed at this time. And we'll start this evening with Ann Schwartz, please.
All right. Last time I was here, I asked what next. And so I'm here for part 2 at the encouragement of a handful of parents, students, and teachers who heard that I was here and what I had to say. So I have a little bit more. So reflection from last meeting, major concerns about bullying at Forest View Middle School. And what I see there is different than many of the schools that I have worked at in the state. The number of occurrences, the frequency, the severity of actions, the pervasiveness, the absence of a program with clear and consistent practices, the inconsistency and ineffectiveness of consequences, the absence of restoration practices, the absence of data gathering and analysis, to identify patterns and take action, including how many students have left because of being bullied, or grades dropping, things like that. Inconsistency and or lack of communication to teachers, parents, and guardians, especially of the victim, and including what teachers should do to be proactive to ensure all students are safe and learning. So I'm certain you're aware of the Top 20 program. I'm sure Mr. Anderson talked about that last time. It's a wonderful program. I love it. And some of the schools in Wayzata used it. And it is a great program, but it's not an anti-bullying program. And when I asked the administration there what their bullying program and practices were, they said top 20. It will certainly help to improve the climate and environment at the school, but it cannot stand alone in the practices of dealing with what's going on today, for sure. So first of all, it is being implemented from the inside by counselors and teachers who are already overworked. Not that they're not qualified, the time. So the slow pace at which it's being implemented is not effective for it to take hold as soon as it should. Furthermore, the creators of the program will tell you that it takes 3 to 5 years of dedicated implementation for the school or district to see an impact. So given the way it's being implemented at Forest View, I am concerned it's going to be at least 5 years. Second, what about the next 3 to 5 years? You cannot afford to sit on your hands and hope things will take care of themselves, because they're not. It's getting worse. Okay, I recall a girl from Forest View 2 years ago who took her own life, and 4 girls who attempted to do so in the bathrooms right at school. That was very recent. So I ask, what are we waiting for? Something needs to change. If the answer is resources, I just heard the concern about resources, but there's still a lot of low-hanging fruit that wouldn't cost any more money, actually. So I would ask you to consider the fact that if we have one parent who goes to the state and the investigation's open, you will spend 10 times the resources it would take to be proactive and do something now. Thank you.
Perfect timing.
My granddaughter had me practice. Thank you.
Next up, we have Andrew Mendez, please.
Hey everyone, happy Tuesday evening. I'm here not to actually speak tonight about any issue or policy relating to the district. I'm here to extend a big thank you to the chair, Kevin Voiles, for his time and his service as it finally comes to an end in this school board meeting. I can remember all the way back to the summer of 2020 when I was looking at all of the school board candidates who had filed to run for school board and reading through each of their websites. Now, for some reason, when I read through Kevin's website, I got this gut feeling that not only would he win the seat, but I would go on to know him later. So when I saw his phone number on the website, I knew I had to call him and tell him about some of the issues that I'd seen in the district and issues that I cared very deeply and very passionately about. And I did this to make sure that some things would be done before I went off to college and embarked on a new chapter. And by the end of that week, I went off to college and embarked on a new chapter. And I got to watch from afar as Kevin jumped headfirst into the absolute chaos that was 2021. And despite Kevin being completely new to our governance in our district, he handled the situation with grace and professionalism, even after facing threats from the public and having people follow him to his car after school board meetings. Kevin worked tirelessly trying to make connections with people who disagreed with his beliefs, and he tried his best to set politics aside and make human connections so that there could be civil and friendly discourse instead of threats, hate, and rage. During this past election, Kevin was the only candidate who regularly checked in with me, not to just discuss the election, but to simply see how I was doing. Kevin is one of those very few public servants who doesn't care about the power that he has, but only cares about the community and the people that he represents. So from the bottom of my heart, on behalf of everyone else, thank you for all of your work. Thank you for the thousands of hours of work, not just on the exciting issues like COVID-19 and book bans, but on the completely boring things that almost no one notices, will ever notice or care about. It has been an absolute pleasure to witness and to also be involved with and work on you on different issues that I care deeply about. So I wish you the best of luck on your next chapter. Thank you.
Next, Dr. Heidi Hahn, please. I'm wearing this shirt for Dr. Heidi Hahn tonight.
Yeah, so we just had to start out with some music, just to bring it there, but I really appreciate the shirt this evening, Director Boyles. But Director Boyles, Superintendent Grant, and members of the board, I, for one, am thankful that the election season is over. It's a time that brings out the best and the worst in people, and that is why I'm here to speak this evening. I want to thank you for your decision to run for the school board and for your service on the school board. No one will ever truly understand what it means to be a school board member until they actually become one. Being a school board member is more than a meeting once a month or the occasional committee meetings. Being a school board member reaches far beyond the boardroom. Being a school board member is taking every school handbook, reading them, highlighting them, tabbing pages, and then subbing in every building to see what's actually happening day in and day out with our students and staff. It's volunteering to read in classrooms, talk to our kids, to eat lunch with them and remind them that they can do anything they dream of doing. It's about modeling what it means to be good to one another. It's about being present in the classroom where students are showing their entrepreneurial skills in Shark Tank or listening to capstone presentations where they demonstrate the culmination of 4 months of research. It's about showing up at events, cheering on teams, and admiring the talents of our musicians and our theater performances. It's about caring for and checking in on the hundreds of staff dedicating their lives to the care and the success of the children in our community. As this is Chair Boyle's last board meeting, I would specifically like to share my gratitude for his work and his service. Director Boyles, thank you for being so proud and so public about the work that takes place each and every day in Brainerd Public Schools. You have repeatedly shared that you and your wife, she's awesome by the way, she's here, moved back to Brainerd knowing the education that your children would receive. In particular, you knew the exceptional support and education that would be provided in the area of special education. You brag about what happens in Brainerd Public Schools every chance you get. People notice that. Staff notice that. Thank you for always being present, no matter who was asking to meet with you or what the situation involved. And by being present, I mean you always listened fully and intently in every interaction. You always agreed to meet with people in person, and you always responded to people. You could agree and you could disagree with people, but you always did it with deep respect, with genuineness, and with a willingness to learn. Thank you for finding joy in the service as a board member. You were always seeking ways to engage with staff, students, and with community members. And when there were things to celebrate, you wholeheartedly did so. Thank you for your willingness to challenge and support your fellow board members and the education system as a whole. You always stayed focused on what matters, students. And I personally and professionally want to thank you for the time you supported me in both my roles as assistant superintendent and superintendent. The job is a very demanding one, and one that requires that you take care of everyone around you first. I appreciated that when the dust settled, you always took the time to check in and ask, hey, how are you doing? It repeatedly demonstrated that you, again, not only cared about the students, but about the people dedicating their lives to them. Kevin Boyles, you provided incredible service to Brainerd Public Schools. Thank you for always being a champion for our students and staff. Once a warrior, always a warrior.
And our last public comment for tonight, Dave Borish. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Oh,
My name is Dave Borish, a graduate of Brainerd High School and an employee of ISD 181 for over 30 years. I'm just jazzed about being on the show, man. I'm not even supposed to be here. I'm just a glorified extra in this episode, prove how serious the situation is. I do have one job on the ship, though. It's stupid, but I'm going to do it. Commander Kevin Boyles. As your most recent voyage on the Brainerd School Board comes to a close, we wanted to take a moment to thank you for your tireless work and leadership. You've truly exemplified what it means to serve with dedication, heart, and humor. You've truly exemplified what it means throughout your time on the board. You faced challenges with the calm resolve of a seasoned leader, navigating the complex worlds of budgets, policies, most importantly, the needs of our students and families, and you've done it with integrity, no matter how difficult the task. In my experience, there's no such thing as luck. Your work on the budget was no small feat. Whether it was balancing financial constraints or ensuring that every dollar worked toward the best interest of our students, you handled it with the precision and care of a commander guiding our ship through troubled space. Your commitment to our school's financial health was evident in every decision you made. While you can't stop change any more than you can stop the sun from setting, your thoughtful approach ensured that the district could maintain its mission to serve all students. Of course, your involvement in the school renovation project was another testament to your leadership. You helped guide us through the complexities of planning, funding, and executing such an important initiative. You understood, as you said, it's not about the game, it's about the fate of the universe. The renovation was not just about improving buildings, it was about shaping the future of our students and their learning environment, something you took very seriously, even when the process seemed overwhelming. You've proven time and time again that even when it feels like it's a trap, your focus determines your reality. Then there was the COVID-19 mask controversy. As tensions mounted, you faced a volatile issue with grace and poise. Even when emotions ran high, you always reminded us of the importance of balance in the force and the bigger picture. After all, you're not all real astronauts, you're just actors. What were you gonna do? Yet you made sure to navigate this difficult time with compassion, ensuring our schools could safely operate while listening to the community. As you often said, it's just a show, but we take it seriously. You led us through that controversy by taking every argument into account, thinking about what was best for our students and families, and standing by your principles. Through all of it, your humor and leadership never wavered. You embodied the words, "I have been and always shall be your friend." And that sentiment was clear in everything you did for our school district, whether it was standing firm on difficult issues or lightening the mood with a perfect pop culture reference. You made sure that the ship kept sailing smoothly. Never tell me the odds might have been your motto when facing obstacles, but you always knew how to guide us through them. Thank you for your service, your commitment, and your friendship. You've shown us all the importance of leadership and that no matter what the challenge, let the Wookiee win. We're very grateful for everything you've done for our schools and our community, and always do or do not. There is no try. You've always done. By Grabthar's hammer, by the sons of Horven, you shall be remembered.
I don't see how we could possibly do another public comment today. All right, let's move on to the approval of the minutes from last meeting. So we have two to do tonight. We have the canvassing and regular school board meeting back from on November 12th, please.
Motion.
Second.
So we have a motion from Director Dondelinger with a second from Director Spear. Any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And then we had special school board meeting from December 3rd.
So moved.
Second.
So we have a motion from Director Heidman with a second from Director Ward. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Move on to the consent calendar. Just a quick note on here, there is a fairly lengthy list of policies, and I'll ask Director Heidman to chime in and Superintendent Grant. Most of these that are on here are on the consent agenda because there are just minor tweaks based on the MSBA boilerplate language, so minor variances in some sentences and stuff. One exception that's on here would be under the 507, the corporal punishment and restraint. There is a section 5 in that policy where there was a new paragraph put back in talking about use of force, which was not in the previous, which is part of that whole issue around when some of the school districts yanked their resource officers and all of that stuff. So that they kind of clean that up at MSBA level, so that's in there. So if you had a chance to review that in your packet. So other than that, Director Heidman, any other ones that you can think of?
No, I think,
Only other one that jumps to mind for me is the last one, which is 904, and all we did there was, Ollie, you can correct me if I'm wrong on this one, but I think we added just a little bit of language to make it consistent with the 500 series and the 400 series policies that are essentially all saying the same thing.
Correct.
So that's it on the policy piece. Do we have any other discussion? Director Ward?
Mr. Chair, I just want to also make the board and committee aware that under the consent calendar is the approval of the student representative on committee's applications. So we've been working hard on that, and it's moving forward. So I just wanted to highlight that as well.
What is it?
Approval of the student representative on committee, student reps on committees.
Oh, yeah, I don't think that's on this.
That's on
consent.
That's done in the new business, John.
Oh, it is?
Yep.
Yep, we'll have a
I thought it was on the
discussion.
consent calendar,
Yeah, I
I'm
was like, I
sorry.
don't see it
Oh,
on here.
excuse me, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Okay.
Yep, got it.
I have a couple things. This attendance policy seems fine. But I guess that I'm really concerned about, you know, I was talking to Michelle about it when we started, before we started, is it seems to me that our chronic absenteeism level, like at Forest View, is in the mid-20s. And I don't know the proper ways to fix that, but I'd like to see the policy committee, like next year or whenever they get back and going again, is to see if there's something that we can do to help solve that problem. You know, I was thinking about it, there's a chronic absenteeism is 10%, is what makes it chronic, because I asked at one of our meetings. And so there's 163 days in the school year, so you miss 16 in 10 years, you've missed a whole year. And so maybe our reading scores would get better, our math scores would get better, if we could figure out a way to get these kids coming to school. And the second one I've got that I'd like to see us look into as well is the graduation requirements. We've talked about it before, there really aren't any requirements. If you take the class, you graduate, and I don't think that we're doing anybody any favors in their future for prosperity reasons or ease of finding a good job if we don't hold their feet to the fire a little bit and make them at least pass the class. And I think we're doing a disservice to our kids. And, you know, it may seem like a nice thing to do, but then they have to get out in the real world, and I think it would help them drastically if we could get them through. And I think that it's been the same thing going on in education for 190 years, and I think that it can be done. And I think we should really dig into it and figure out how to help get that accomplished. I mean, I'm happy to vote for this today, but I'd like to see us get back after this next year.
Director Ward?
Mr. Chair, as far as student attendance, couldn't agree more, DJ. I do know that there is some pilot programs in the state going this year through the legislation that are showing great improvement in attendance in some of the schools in the state. And I know there's a legislative committee set up specifically for this, for attendance. It's a crisis situation nationwide, not only just in Brainerd, but in Minnesota. And some of the things they're doing in some of the other schools is showing some improvement, significant improvement. So I'm hoping that the legislature sees that and doesn't make it a unfunded mandate, but maybe even provide some funds for that. So.
Yeah, we know that would work. What are they, is there anything that you can, like an example of what they're doing that's helping?
I just remember reading about what what one district is doing, I think it was Northfield. I don't know if anybody else read that, or I think it was Northfield, I can't remember, that they're providing significant tutoring, one-on-one tutoring and small group tutoring. They're following through with calls to home. They're addressing transportation problems. You know, they're addressing the issues that have been told to them about chronic absenteeism. So, and they have changed attendance on the ones that are participating in that pilot program.
Good.
Yeah.
Good point. So any other discussion related to the consent agenda? Okay, hearing none. I would entertain a motion.
Motion.
Second.
So we have a motion from Director Donnellinger and a second from Director Spear to approve the consent calendar as presented. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, we'll move on to presentations. We'll bring up Jack Freeman to talk about the Scoreboard partnership with the Brainerd Sports Boosters. Hi, Jack.
Good evening. I love the shirt, Mr. Boyles.
Thank you.
I want to thank you for the opportunity to present to you tonight. A project that I'm very excited about and I think is a great opportunity for our school district. I want to take a quick minute to recognize two people in the audience who are here on behalf of Brainerd Sports Boosters. We have our current Brainerd Sports Booster president, Laura Grauman, and our outgoing past president, Joel Clow, with us tonight. I get to see the work that they do for our kids, community, and school district on a daily basis, and whether it be the financial support they provide, the platform they provide us to celebrate our kids at weekly luncheons, or the state send-offs that they always go above and beyond and making the interscholastic experience that much more special for our kids. We're lucky to have this group of people and the great work that they do in our community. I'm going to be highlighting a potential partnership with them on a project, and I want to start my presentation and end my presentation by saying the cost to the district for this project will be $0, and we can update our stadium scoreboard and create an additional revenue stream for our athletic department. So to just give you some background, I just wanted to provide you with some pictures on the current state. If you look in the top left, you will see our current scoreboard in our stadium. We've gotten a lot of great use out of it over the years. It has definitely served its purpose well, but we are in need of updating our existing scoreboard. I included many pictures from communities in our conference and in our section, and I wanted to do that to highlight when our teams go on the road, this is what they see in opposing schools, stadiums. And then they come back and I hear, when are we going to do this in Brainerd? So that's feedback that I've definitely heard from our community. And we would definitely be the outlier. I mean, the video boards that you see in front of you would be the norm in stadiums. All those schools have smaller enrollments than us. But we would definitely be the outlier with our current setup. So for the past 2 years, hearing that feedback from our community, I've been doing my research in reviewing what other schools have in place within their stadiums, and that's reviewing the products that are in place and also the revenue that those boards are generating. And in line with the game day experience that these boards can add to, what I'm even more concerned about is the revenue that we're missing out on with our current setup. I really zoned in on Alexandria as having the best model out there in terms of the product that they have and the amount of revenue that it generates for their athletic department. And when I looked at their model, I quickly realized that we have everything in place here in Brainerd to take what they've done really well and had a lot of success with and implement it here. They used the Cardinal Athletic Foundation to partner with. That group took out a loan on our current video board. Went out and sold the advertisement for it, and that Cardinal Athletic Foundation would be their version of Brainerd Sports Boosters. So we have everything in place here in our community to take that model and implement it. So in August, I brought that idea to Superintendent Grant to see if there was an appetite to further explore this possibility. I also brought it to the Brainerd Sports Booster Board, and both sides said yes, let's see if this is a possibility. In the fall of 2024, we formed a committee with myself, Joel Clow, Nate Olson, Kevin Thiesing. We went out and received 3 quotes from 3 different vendors. We invited those vendors to come on site, see our grounds, provide us with renderings and quotes, and we included our tech team and grounds crew to ensure that they were part of this process as well. At the November 15th meeting, the booster board, we also spent a lot of time creating contracts, drafting up contract proposals, fund management proposals, and just covering the overall scope of the project. And at the November 15th meeting, the Brainerd Sports Booster Board approved the contracts as they're currently written. I told them that the next step, obviously, is me bringing it back to the district for final approval. So on the 19th, I presented this proposal to our business director, buildings and grounds department, tech department, and BHS principal. On December 2nd, I presented it to Superintendent Grant, and then on December 3rd, I presented it to the Finance Committee, and now I'm here tonight presenting it to you. Any questions regarding the timeline? Our committee's making the recommendation that we go with Daktronics as the provider for this board. We have a lot of Daktronics boards in place across our district currently in all of our spaces except our main gym court where we have a ScoreVision board. I included the price of the board, the concept of it, and the quote for your review. It is the feedback from our committee that we go out and we try to sell 12 total sponsorship panels, and we go with lit panels. I can show you an example between the difference. If you look top right here at Detroit Lakes, that's not lit. If you look at Alexandria's, it's lit. It's a little bit more professional looking, and we thought given the dollar amount that we're gonna go out to businesses and ask for, we wanted it to be as professional as possible. We didn't think that 12 was overwhelming in terms of taking away from the actual stadium. We thought it fit perfectly. It's a model similar to what St. Michael Albertville has in place currently, and we thought it looked very sharp. We would try to sell 6 of the big panels, and we would call those founding partner panels, and 6 of the smaller panels on the bottom. Those would be community partner panels. If we're able to sell all 12 of those panels at the dollar amounts that we have outlined in the contract, we would be able to create a revenue stream of $162,000 per year for the district. It's our recommendation to include visibility in our main gym and aquatic center to make this a comprehensive project. Currently, we have 2 video boards in the main gym, 1 video board in the aquatic center. We've had the boards in the main gym since 2016, and they've so far brought in $0 in revenue. So we're trying to tie it all together so we're not going out for multiple asks. We also thought it would help with negotiations, visibility, and increasing the value of the ask. We also are making the recommendation to include a new audio system for our stadium, and I know our tech department was happy about that because the current system in our stadium, it has its echoes, and it's also at its life expectancy. So if that goes down, we need to have a plan to replace that. So we thought it was best to include that in this project. And this box right here with the Warrior logo, the helmet, that would be the audio system. This would be the branding that we would, the trusses, and that we would have in the main gym. We would have the founding partner, the bigger panels, along the bigger video board in the main gym, along the south wall there, and then the smaller community panels around the smaller video board on the north wall. This would be the rendering for the aquatic center. Again, similar branding and graphics up top. We'd have the founding partner panels on the sides of the scoreboard there. We didn't think it made sense, just given the size of it and the infrastructure currently in there, to put the 6 smaller panels below. The recommendation was to put it on the opposite wall above the diving well and just have it be separate ad panels. The contract language, we took directly from Alexandria. We're not reinventing the wheel here. They're 2.5 years into this, and they're having great success. It's been a great community partnership for them, and we're just adopting what they already have in place. We did make minor adjustments to, use some of our local terms, but the founding partner contract would be a 5-year contract at $15,000 per contract. The community partner contract would be a 5-year contract at $12,000 per year. In terms of fund management, we did add one existing document for how the funds would be managed in contract language. Alexandria didn't have this in place. We put this in place just as an extra protection to ensure that all funds and interest generated from these funds would stay within the district and only be spent on projects and improvements within the districts. Meaning if an outside person came in and said, I'm going to build a field house, went to Brainerd Sports Boosters and asked for a grant donation, this money couldn't be used for that. This money can only be used for ISD 181 capital projects. This will be a separate dedicated account that Boosters will host. It won't be mixed with their money that they already have from their other fundraisers, such as Tapped and Corked, the golf tournaments, etc. This will be a completely separate account where all money going in and out would be easily viewed and accessible. These funds are exclusively, again, for capital projects that support the long-range athletic facility planning of Brainerd Public Schools. These would be your dream big projects. I want you to think about video board in the stadium, lights at the softball field, turf practice field with a bubble, those types of items. It wouldn't be for your smaller items like bats, balls, pucks, those annual requests that we see. Would be the bigger ticket items. We can be very creative in how we pair this with LTFM money to address some of the needs of the existing infrastructure that we have at the lower site and within Brainerd High School in our athletic facilities. And I'll use softball as an example for that. We've made improvements to accessibility at softball, and we've added a scoreboard at softball. We still know we need to address dugouts there. We need to address lighting. LTFM dollars can cover existing infrastructure, such as updating the dugouts, but we can't use LTFM dollars to put in new lights because there's nothing existing in terms of lights currently. This pot of money could update the new stuff that LTFM can address. And if we're creative again with our strategic plan, we can address a lot of the needs across the district. I also included in this language, we don't know who will be in my seat in 10 years. We don't know who will be in our superintendent's chair, who will be in this board's chair, Brainerd Sports Boosters chair. In the event that this agreement were to sour, all funds would be returned to the district. I wanted to make sure that that protection was in place as well. This is important, and I think it's, I just want to really emphasize this. You know, why should these funds be hosted by Brainerd Sports Boosters? Number one, they're great at fundraising. They have a proven track record that shows it. They do it really well. They do it really well in our community. They have a great reputation when it comes to it. And as great as they are at fundraising, they're even better at giving the money back to the school district. And they have a decades-long track record that shows that, giving well over $1 million back to the district over their time. Number three, it provides us with some separation from the ask. Again, I mean, we can share with our community loud and clear, zero tax dollars are going towards this project. $0 from the school budget is going towards this project, and we're addressing some of the needs that we have within our stadium. Number four, they have great connections within our business community. They're all business members and members of the chamber, you name it, and we can utilize those connections and the relationships that they've built, and that's going to carry a lot of weight when we go out and sit with local businesses to have them at the table leading this effort. Number five, we don't have to allocate our limited staff and resources to manage the project. I think if we had the capacity to take it on, like I said, we've had boards since 2016, we already would have done so. And number six, last, it provides clarity to the advertiser and the sponsor on the purpose of the project and the intended use of the funds. It makes it very clear when we're asking for this money, what the money is going towards. It's very specific. Next steps would be approval from the district. If there's any changes, we'd have to bring that back for approval from the booster board. We have the goal of starting to secure sponsorships by January 1st of 25, finalizing contracts hopefully by early April, and completing construction by early July. So we're up and running for fall sports in the upcoming season. It's an aggressive timeline, but we think we can do it. Again, final thoughts here. We have the opportunity to address our stadium scoreboard and update that, bring in a new audio system, which we know needs to be replaced. Value of $434,655. The cost to the district, again, is $0. After 3 years, 3.5 years, this board would be paid off, and we would have the potential revenue stream of $162,000 per year that will support our long-range athletic facility plans. As I said earlier, I'm excited about the project, and I look forward to any questions you might have.
You said, Jack, the sports boosters, we've spent about $1 million since their existence?
Laura would have that dollar amount better prepared than I would, but yeah, we have a sign somewhere that says.
I looked today,
Okay.
and I know for sure we're at 1.3, and it's probably higher than that, going back to some older records.
Yeah. Well, I'm all for this. I just wish we had a math boosters club, a science boosters club, a reading boosters club. But we don't.
We could start one.
Maybe we could, but this is absolutely fantastic. What will you do with the existing scoreboard?
We, I was actually talking with Coach Freed about that a little earlier. We would definitely have a need at Forest View currently with the rusted infrastructure over there that is no longer in operation. So we would repurpose it and either move it to the practice field at BHS or over to Forest View based off what our grounds crew would recommend.
So do we have the film and stuff to have this cool video going? Like, do we have to go buy a whole bunch of stuff so we can make these, like film these games, or are they already doing that for the coaches and everything and it's already out there?
That's a great question. What I've learned with our video boards is we need people to manage the content. A lot of the content management is done like on the front end. And just creating that, having that ready to go, dialed up. So when DJ Donderlinger goes and makes a big tackle, there's like a gif of him
That never happened.
celebrating that.
Got run over a few times.
If you're going to the girls' basketball game tonight, you'll see Nick Hergis up in the bleachers with an iPad filming content, and he'll capture it, and then at a timeout, he'll put it on as an instant replay.
Back, huh?
Yeah. So again, it's finding the people that are able to take on these.
So we're not
these
running
tasks.
around with cords and all this fancy stuff, just iPads and stuff like that. That's good enough quality.
Yeah, it's pretty. If you've watched our live streams, the technology and the AI, the advance that we've seen there has been pretty amazing.
Pretty cool.
So even from the get-go, the district has no financial involvement in this whatsoever? So we're on the back end if there's surplus revenue that comes in as a result of the residuals on these panel sales?
Correct.
So being the devil's advocate, you've got, is it 36 different panels that you're selling, or are you selling 12 and people are buying chunks of 3 in each of the locations, right? Because you've got.
We'd be selling 12 total. You would have visibility, stadium.
Right, so you buy a
Yeah.
package and you're in all 3 of those. So
Correct.
the prices that you showed for like the founder's package, the 15 grand gives you 1 panel in each of the locations?
Correct.
Okay.
For 5 years.
Correct.
Well, you gotta
So you're really
pay-
only selling 12, you're not trying to sell 36?
No,
Right,
no,
yeah.
and,
So-
and we
5-year
talked
commitment.
about
But it's a
that,
5-year
and we
commitment.
thought from a management setup and just starting that off in the first 5 years, we thought that this was the best route to go and having it be all encompassing.
Sure, and presumably you've had some preliminary discussions with people and there's some interest out there already that you can gauge, or?
I think there's going to be a lot of excitement around this
Well, you only have
project.
11 to sell, because
Yeah.
Dondlinger Chevy's taking 1
Oh,
of them.
cut it down. Stay in your lane there, Disco.
No, we'd be excited about the opportunity to go present this to local businesses, and I think it's a project. I mean, we live in a very generous community. We're really lucky that way, and we know it's a big ask, but I think it would be an exciting community partnership.
The banners that are down at the stadium now, in all fairness to the people that are gonna be buying these panels, I would assume we're gonna be removing some of those banners, because, I mean, I'm just looking at it from a standpoint, I guess if someone's willing to write a check for 15 grand for 5 years and they don't care about existing banners that are there, does that raise any money? Do the banners raise any money now?
So the banners on the fencing
Yeah.
is for the teams. So it's like the Brainerd Warrior Football Association, the Softball Association, the Baseball Association. So that's individual team sales along the fences. Alexandria has maintained that, so like the teams can still go out and sell those. It's obviously not the same visibility as right at the scoreboard. But one of the things that we discussed is we're well aware of fundraising fatigue and burnout. And when we would go to these businesses, we would say, if you're going to do this, we understand that this is a huge commitment, and you would have the potential opportunity to opt out of any future, being contacted for future fundraising efforts. And then we would say to all those groups, don't go to these businesses for those types of projects, trying to be cognizant of fundraiser burnout. It's dialogue we've had. Alexandria's navigated it. They've kept the signage along the fence. It's paired well. It hasn't been an issue.
Cool.
Mr. Chair, I am all for this project as well. I want to bring forward some of the things that were talked about at the Finance Committee that DJ and myself participated in. And the question was asked, and Marcy brought it up and raised some question about, can we do this and do it within the district to maybe use money for other district needs. And so that question is still out there. I mean, I think that even in our summary that we got, we see that it was in there. For myself personally, what I see is sports boosters have a great reputation, number one, for supporting our community. Number two, this allows athletic needs, significant athletic needs that have been long overdue to be done and taken care of. So from my perspective, you know, it's taking athletic needs and not having to compete with academic needs, so that, you know, we don't have a competitive kind of deal like we currently exist. And I think that's, bless you, I think that's just a win-win also. And so I wanted to make that point. I just wanted to make that point, that this separates athletic needs from academic needs. I mean, we still have tons of academic needs, obviously, that we've been talking about and trying to, you know, get a handle on. This is a way with $0 commitment from the district, right? $0 commitment from the district, right? To address significant needs that have been in the athletic department for years. So I'm all in favor. Matter of fact, can I make a motion?
I can't control you, John, never have been able to.
Here's one thing, just to be fully transparent. My favorite things. There is, like, we do have to run some cables to the bleachers that cost about $10,000. But that's our only obligation, right?
That was the unforeseen cost that Alexandria learned about. We're going to try to be proactive on the front end to make sure that we're aware of all those costs up front.
So I mean, I don't think that's a bad deal.
Nobody's getting caught off guard
Since
by
we
that.
keep saying 0, if we wouldn't said it so many times, there's a little something, we had to run some wires.
Yeah.
That's pretty minimal compared to what this is gonna do.
Yep.
So, make the motion.
I'll move that, that we go ahead with the project with the sports boosters on the new board panels.
I'll second it.
All right, so we have a motion from Director Ward with a second from Director Dondelinger to approve the presentation from Jack and team and Brainerd Sports Boosters to move forward with your next phase of your process. Any further discussion?
I totally support this, but I've got one quick question on the document that was created with the intent of ensuring all funds, so on and so forth.
Yep.
To my knowledge, and maybe I've only been here a few years, have we ever done something like this before? Is this something we'd want to send through our general counsel, or is this something that we've seen before or other schools have seen before? Just to make sure we're mitigating our risk in this.
I think that's fair.
Okay. Yeah, I'm good. Thank you.
I'd like to just say one thing. This is under presentation, not under action item.
Oh,
Oh,
we're
this isn't
ahead
an
of
action item?
ourselves.
Pardon?
This isn't an action item?
Well, technically, no. I don't have a dog in this hunt, so to speak. I respect what Marcy's concerns are about, should we run into academic needs that we aren't meeting, there's a potential that this type of dollars that are not under our umbrella are not going to be available to us, and I respect that part. I also, though, have a great respect for what Jack is trying to accomplish with the Booster Club. And deciding on how to do the agenda for tonight, I purposely asked that it not be an action item, so you had just time to think. Now, if you want to change that, that's your role. But it was purposely not put under action, just so that if there's anything else you need to think about and ask about, you have time to contemplate what those questions might be. It doesn't mean you're against it or for it. It's just that, do you need more time to understand the total concept and what you're committing yourself to? That the dollars that will be generated will be strictly for athletic needs, and that the district has no opportunity to tap into those for anything that might be of an importance that we run into. That's the only thing I'm bringing up in defense of Marcy.
Superintendent, isn't there a wall between these dollars anyway? I mean, athletic dollars versus academic dollars already?
No, everything's under the general budget.
Okay, so the athletic budget is part of the general
Everything's under the
fund?
general fund, yep.
Okay, okay.
Yep. That's my only point that I told Marcy that I would address, because I know she wasn't gonna be here. But that's your call, not mine.
Well, based upon that, I'm gonna make a motion can we amend the agenda at this point
To do
of
what?
the meeting? To put this under new business for action?
We don't have to. John's motion makes it an action item.
Right.
Okay, all right.
It's just a question of whether it passes or not at this point.
Okay.
Or whether Director Ward withdraws it based on Superintendent Grant's comments. Those would be the two options available.
I'm gonna move forward.
And I think that's a valid concern, and it's spot on, it's a real concern, as money gets super tight. And I think those are also dollars that don't exist today and wouldn't exist without the sports boosters taking on this project. So if we said no to this, those dollars would be available for nothing.
Because they wouldn't be there.
Oh, yeah, they don't
Right, I
exist.
agree with
wouldn't
you.
be there.
That's what I said
Right, yep,
to Mars.
yeah.
And the other thing too is how would this look with the dollars that we have in the district? How would that look? Spend almost $500,000 on a scoreboard, the school district, out of their own funds. And do we have professional salespeople that are gonna go out and sell these ads?
That's
I
why
mean,
we're not involved in any of that.
I know, but what I'm saying is that there's a discussion about
Right.
these dollars cannot be used for other purposes except athletic. Well, I mean, I'm not willing to take a risk on almost $500,000 and then having someone go out and sell ads. Heck, no, that makes,
We're not in the business model of selling. Right, you're absolutely right.
yeah, and I understand there's the concern about the dollars, but, maybe this will alleviate the need for taking money
My
out of the general
perspective,
fund.
the concern isn't the dollars, the concern is the optics.
Yeah.
So if you get into the spring next, right, you're gonna get into the spring and there's gonna be whatever budgetary adjustments are happening at the district level. And I think if the narrative can be controlled correctly and communicated correctly on how this is working, repeated forceful communication, this is sports booster money.
Correct.
That we're not reducing class sizes for third graders and buying a $500,000 scoreboard, right? That's what you want to avoid, because the two events are gonna coincide at what could argue to be not great timing.
Mr. Chair,
Director Ward?
I'll be the devil's advocate here because I see it as as I was saying before, I see it as a possible plus for academic resources. Because we don't have to take those dollars and spend them within the athletic department. So this is a possible plus for academic purchases rather than athletic purposes. So that's the way I see it.
It's gonna make a great Facebook video, John.
I hope not.
I just want to thank Jack for the research that you did and the hard work that you put into putting this all together and for our partnership with the sports boosters, because this will really benefit our district. Yeah. Thanks.
Well, we have a motion, we have a second, and we've had discussion. Is there any further discussion before I call a vote? Hearing none, those in favor of the motion to accept the proposal as presented by Director Freeman, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you.
All right, next we'll do the CIP goals. Last batch of these, I think, isn't it, Christina?
It is the last batch.
Save the best for last.
Yes, thank you. This is our last installment of the CIP plan. So just one more time, the sites met in August and reviewed their qualitative and quantitative data depending on the goals that they had. They looked at, did they meet their goal? Yes, no, is it in progress if it is a multi-year goal? And then they move forward with writing goals for the current school year. One was a literacy goal, one is a continuation or revision of a previous goal, and then they could decide if they wanted to add a third goal. And then from there, they develop the action plans to work towards those goals this year. So again, this is just a summary of their review and their goals for the upcoming school year. So our first presenter is Lynn Borman, who is the principal of Lowell Elementary School.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for this opportunity to share about some initiatives at Lowell. Taking a look at how the 23-24 school year ended with relative to our MCA goals, Lowell focused on reading for MCA for both the subgroup special ed as well as the overall proficiency. So reading was the focus. Although our goal was 70, we wanted to increase 3 percentage points from 75.5 to 78.5. And although we did not meet our goal, we are in progress with that goal. And as well for goal number 2 with the subgroup for special education students, again, wanting to increase 3 percentage points. I sometimes find that when we fall short of goals or perhaps things are moving opposite the direction than we intended, we've got richer and more fulfilling conversation. We had lots of great conversation around exploring not just attendance data, math data, taking a look obviously at our reading data, but having some projection about making sure that with fidelity and consistency, we have our practices in place. And so with some challenges that Lowell faced during the past school year, we found that those were contributing factors to perhaps falling short of where we wanted students to be. But it gives us extra motivation. Lowell staff has just been such a blessing and an honor to be working with the staff and students and community at Lowell this year. Very highly trained, talented teachers who are very, very dedicated to students. So we are doubling down on our efforts in that regard. And I'll share with you the goals for this upcoming year shortly. The third goal was our overarching goal of our MTSS, which is a district-wide initiative. We wanted to close achievement gaps, but as I'll explain a little bit later in my presentation, MTSS doesn't just encompass academics. It's the A, the B, and the SEL. It's the academic, the behavior, and the social emotional learning. FastBridge is a new assessment that we're implementing district-wide as well. And to that end, we're looking at tracking individual progress for students as well as our district-wide focus this year is really tier 1. So that's what we want 80% or more of our kids to really be achieving. And we can take a look at how we might even intervene with the group level rather than just even small group or individual. We took where we landed at the end of this current school year with those results, and we used that for our baseline data for the next school year. So our goals for this year, you'll see, I'll go to the top and the bottom, and I'll finish with the continued one in the middle. For the literacy goal, we're starting with where we ended, 70.7%. A typical improvement would be 3%. However, because we want to get back to where we did achieve at 75.5%, we did achieve that the year prior, we are looking at a 4.8% improvement. So we're increasing the growth that we would like to see in the area of literacy. For our data dig goal, we're continuing to focus again on reading with our special education subgroup. So we want to see our starting point being where we last ended with our last assessments and wanting to improve 3 percentile points for that. Again, looking in the middle at the MTSS, we are looking at FastBridge as well as our SABRS, which is our social emotional data. And we're looking at focusing on tier 1 of instruction, but also school-wide, wanting to really take a look at students who would most qualify for the SABRS data are what generated our small group for social skills with our collaborative worker. So taking a look at MTSS process, some specific things we did at Lowell this year after we reviewed our process as a whole is we explored more explicit details and timelines. So with input from the MTSS team as well as our SIP team, we redefined the details and timelines relative to that process to make it more clear for teachers. And we also developed a list of tier 1 resources. We have a helpful links page for Lowell, and our Tier 1 resources are an added link. That's new for this year. So taking a look at different websites such as PBIS and giving some teachers to explore how and when they might use that resource during staff meetings and professional development. Our collaborative workers, new this year, we are incorporating social skills groups, and that again is based on that SABRS data. So we had multiple meetings with my collaborative worker, myself, and our school psychologist to take a look at the fall universal assessments and the results of those to create small groups. I created Google Docs that I shared with each grade level, so we remain confidential at the grade level meeting, or grade level, and asked for teacher input as well. So we made some modifications to those small groups, and then we will continue to review those small groups, the current configuration after we do the winter testing. So we do this fall, winter, and spring for our assessment data. So we'll see any adjustments that we need to make after our January round of assessments. We recently completed an MTSS survey with our teachers, and we had a little bit of a different approach, the 2 I's as I call it. I wanted input from teachers about identifying and being able to implement effective Tier 1 strategies. So when we're taking a look at math and reading, as well as the behavior interventions, gauging teachers' comfort level with, can I identify, can I locate, and can I successfully implement interventions for students in my classroom? Behavior interventions in particular, teacher feedback was they're wanting additional strategies on how can I be more proactive or continue to develop strategies on the proactive end, as well as wanting support on the other end for students maybe who might take additional problem solving or putting heads together to do some programming for them. So that's going to help drive future programming. I'm taking a look at Catalyst, thinking specifically about behavior interventions through Sourcewell, what we might want to do either at a back to school or maybe even yet as we close out this school year. In addition to that, we want to equip our EAs who primarily their first priority is working with students from a behavior standpoint. So we want to be equipping EAs with professional development and strategies as well as our teaching staff. So focusing on picking up where we left off and wanting to have a greater increase than we typically do for literacy, focusing on our special ed subgroup, and then really focusing on Tier 1 MTSS, but then also expanding that to the Tier 2 and 3 for math, reading, behavior, and social emotional learning. Questions about initiatives at Lowell?
I don't know if it's a question, but the concerning thing to me, it's nothing against you, it's the same with all the Brainerd schools, it seems like, that I've been through these, is that we spent, of your presentation, you spent about 30 seconds on reading and 30 seconds on this, and the rest of it's all about MTSS. I'm just wondering if, and I don't think it's coming from you personally, if our school, we're focusing so much on SEL, so much on these new educational things, that we're losing our way in the reading and the math and the things that really help you in the future. Because it seems like, remember with Forresty's presentation, the same thing. It's like, I don't know, I just want to make sure that, you know, there's Sabre and the Fast Bridge and all these new things that we have that are so helpful aren't distracting us from the real core subjects that these kids really need to be able to get out in society and be a benefit to our area, to themselves, to their families, to da-da-da-da-da-da, you know. I mean, it's really a huge deal. If you look at numbers, you know, Kevin told me this, is that, you know, you learn to read from K to 3 and you read to learn the rest of your life. And so if we can't get them going, they're kind of behind and it's really hard to catch up. So anyways, otherwise, nice job. You got some great numbers, some of them. So.
Thank you. And being new, I didn't know that songs and costumes were part of the board, but it was a very nice touch. I loved it.
So you might want to think ahead to your next presentation.
Note taken. I appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So our second presenter is Jill Biogi, and she is the principal of Riverside Elementary.
Good evening. As always, it's fun to share, right? All the amazing things that are happening in our schools. I have to say that at the heart of Riverside Elementary is our continuous improvement plan. We acknowledge our data. We understand where our students are coming from, and we're working very hard. 3 years ago, it was August, 3 years ago, we sat down in a room together and our continuous improvement team made a pretty intense dedication to our plan. They set actionable items that we are genuinely plowing through because it's not easy work. But their dedication is just unwavering and amazing. We, over the course of the last 3 years, have had training in restorative practices, working towards a co-teaching model, working towards more inclusivity and leadership positions to help ensure that Riverside feels like a place to belong. I know, it probably seems soft, right? Like, why are we doing this? But if children, if humans in general, I mean, we're social beings, if we don't feel like we belong, there's not really any chance that we're gonna learn. If we don't feel like we're safe, there's not gonna be that chance there. And so at Riverside, when we kept kind of digging, looking at all of this data and kind of digging why, well, first, kids have to feel safe and they have to feel like they belong. They have to learn how to deal with their trauma and how to cope when the academics are getting harder, but really what's on their mind is whether or not they're gonna be able to eat or have a safe place to sleep. And so for us, as you can see, our 6 goals, they're around all the things that you talk about as board members and the policies that you create. We've been working really hard on attendance. Again, the more we can make school feel like a safe place, the more children feel like they belong, the more likely they will attend. And then the more success we will have academically. And again, I know I'm preaching to the choir. All of you already know this. So we feel fortunate. We met our goal. We went from 67.55% in 2022 to 70.55% in 2023. So we're excited about that, but we still haven't arrived. So working more towards that. The proficiency gap between our special ed students and our non-special ed students, we wanted to decrease that from 39.5 to 36.5. We met that. We took it even a little bit farther, which is great. Super exciting. That being said, we're not there yet. We're still working towards those proficiency rates, as you can see within the free and reduced, and with just our general proficiency rates, we have a ways to go. Our co-teaching model was very successful. When we look at our FastBridge data, our kids are growing exponentially. So it's really important for us to use multiple data points because one data point isn't always going to tell us the full picture or the full story. It looks like we don't have many goals this year compared to the last 2 years. But really what we did was, as a team, like I said, we dedicated to making our goals 3 to 5 year goals. With everything that we are taking on, we know it takes time. And with the gap closure that we have to do, it's going, again, to take that time. So in literacy, we're going to continue learning more about co-teaching and how the collaboration that we can do can truly impact our students. That is probably has been one of our biggest, one of the biggest benefits of co-teaching is students are in general ed classrooms more every day. They're not spending as much time walking down the hall and going to those specialized classrooms. They're getting that instruction in the classroom from their special ed teacher and their classroom teacher. The other areas that we're focusing on, we started leadership positions this year, so those children who are exhibiting Leadership qualities, they get to apply for positions within the building. And if they have a moment, like we all have moments where we make a mistake, their leadership position gets put on a pause until they can continue to show those leadership behaviors. Our behaviors have decreased drastically already this fall, so we're super excited about that. We have seen a little increase in the last few weeks with the holiday season and all the feels that go along with that. But overwhelmingly, we are making great growth. And I honestly couldn't do it. Our staff at Riverside, like I know all the other principals would say, you walk into our buildings, when you sub or when you come in to read, you see the genuine dedication. There's a lot of mind and heart work that goes into our everyday structure. It's just beyond amazing. And our students, if you've had an opportunity to visit Riverside, Mr. Ali visited and our ambassadors took him for a walkabout around our building. And so he could learn about Riverside and the ways that we make it safe and feel like a place to belong. And if you get that opportunity to stop in the schools, it's really important because this continuous improvement work happens every second of the day. We have leaders who show up to school at 7:30 in the morning to teach yoga to other students. We have students who are begging their parents to drop them off at 7:30 in the morning to do these activities. So all of those bits and pieces within our continuous improvement plan, you may think, gosh, how does that truly impact academics? If they come ready, mind and body, our academics will definitely increase. So we're 3 years in to our 5-year goals. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions?
I've got one on your goals for 24, 25. That's quite a jump from 48.6 to 60.8% in proficiency for reading, grade 4. And the only thing that concerns me about that is if it's not met, because to me it's very aggressive. If it's not met, the effect that it has on staff. I kind of equate it to a football team going all the way down, and on 4th down, instead of taking 3 points, they get greedy and they want 7. And they don't get nothing. And that is very deflating. So I'm just curious, is that realistic? Is this something that can be met? Because, you know, it's got to be achievable. Otherwise, it's not a goal. It's a pipe dream. And I'm just questioning, that's all. If you feel, hey, I know you well enough. I've been in the building numerous times. If you feel good about it, I feel good about it. I just want to make sure that it's something that's realistic.
Yeah. I don't create this on my own. There is no way that I would have been able to do any of this work over the course of the last 3 years by myself. Like I said, our parents have bought into the work we're doing. Our students have bought into the work we're doing. Our staff has bought in. And this decision was made by our whole team.
Okay.
And so if we don't make it there, it will offer even more of a pause, even more reflection to think, okay, why not? But based on the work that we are doing with our MTSS and really kind of thinking through those 3 tiers in reading, in writing, in math, in social studies, in science, in SEL, If students aren't successful in core, why not? What do we need to do next? We are working it really hard. Do I believe our students can achieve this? Absolutely.
Cool.
Good for you.
Yeah, no, it's commendable, but it was a question in the back of my mind. Is it too aggressive? Godspeed. You did it one year, you jumped reading scores.
We did.
Unbelievable that one year.
And I think that's the thing we also have to think about too. This is one data point that we're talking about, right? We're talking about the MCAs, and this is a cohort of children that are going through. And it doesn't mean that we don't learn, right? I mean, that's always the hope with continuous improvement, is taking what are the golden nuggets we can take from it and move forward.
Cool.
Thanks.
Jill?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next presenter is Amy Jordan, and she is the principal of LEC, Lincoln Education Center.
Good evening. Thank you for having me here tonight. I'm excited to be able to share with you about Lincoln. We had 4 goals last year, and the first goal was Lincoln's proficiency rate on the MCA accountability test would grow from 14.3 to 17.3, and as you can see, we did not meet that goal. We had only 4.2% of our students pass that or meet the expectations on the MCA test in reading. Goal 2 and Goal 4 are really quite similar. Goal 2 and Goal 4 were the MTSS and the FastBridge. So we used FastBridge as our MTSS screener, much like all of the other buildings did. And so our goal with that was to really, first of all, to use the data that we are getting from the FastBridge assessments and use that to drive our interventions based on very specific needs for each of our students instead of just using maybe their IEP goals. So that was a goal that we had, and we learned a lot from that. We always are using data, collecting a lot of data with special education students, and so this was just a different way for our teachers to look at data and implement some interventions with students. And so then I'll jump to Goal 3 from last year, was to implement UCARU and our crisis team response and increase our de-escalation training with our staff. So essentially what we did really there was we were working on a lot of different things and kind of how we respond to different behaviors that are going on or different events that are happening within the building. Because if we can control our response to students, then sometimes that can help the student improve their response to a situation and then get back into the classroom and be ready to learn. So that was our goals from last year. This one. Okay, and so our goals for next year, literacy goal, instead of looking at just the MCA score in reading, we would really like to look at the benchmark testing, which is done 3 times a year, and have our students show growth. So even though we only had 4.2% of our students meet the expectations on the MCA in reading last year, we did have 61% of our students show growth over the course of the entire year on their reading scores. So we would like to go from 61% to 80% of our students showing growth on the benchmark assessments, and they would need to be there for at least 2 of the benchmark sessions. Next goal is that we are going to continue working on our SABRs, or the social emotional learning goals with the students, increasing from 44% to 60%. And so again, we're gonna look at all kinds of data for that. We're gonna look at attendance, behaviors, we're gonna look at how do they feel when they come to school? Are they ready to learn? Are they ready for school, ready for work, ready for life? Because the goal that we have for all of our students, is that they're ready for life, being community members. Any questions?
Amy, are all the LEC students on IEPs?
Yes, they are all on IEPs, with the exception, I guess, of we have care and treatment programming in our building. So those are students who are placed and reside at Port Group Homes, and so not all of the students there need to be receiving services. Right now, we have only 2 students in the building that are not on IEPs.
So if they're on IEPs, the IEPs drive the goals.
The IEPs drive that student's individual goal based on their current skill levels. And so we want them to show growth on their individual IEP goal, whether that be reading, math, behavior, functional skills, work skills, all kinds of different things. That is not necessarily aligned exactly for each student with an MCA expectation.
Yeah, okay.
Sometimes those are quite far apart.
Amy, what is UCRU?
Mm,
What does that stand for?
It's actually not an acronym.
Oh, it's not, okay.
So UCRU is a de-escalation strategy that we are using, and it's the premise of it is comfort versus control. So we want the student to feel comfortable with their environment, their setting, and how we are interacting with them and with the choices that they're making, instead of that adults are controlling all of their decisions. It does use and implement verbal de-escalation, but also if a student is being unsafe, we have pads that we could use to prevent a student or a staff member from being harmed.
So it's not an acronym for, cool, thank you.
Less of a question, more of a comment, that I think, we have roughly 1,200 staff in this district that bust their butts every day and do great work. But you spend 10 minutes in your facility and watch what you and your team do, and it's life-changing to watch from the outside. Absolutely critical and amazing work that you guys do. And there's only a handful of people that can even do the stuff you guys do. It's just amazing.
Thank you. I know our scores don't always show it when we look at it, but we have amazing, amazing students. We have amazing parents and guardians that we work with, but I am so, so fortunate to work with a staff. Sorry, my throat is very dry. The staff that I have in the building are absolutely phenomenal. And every student that walks into the building, I feel fairly confident saying that they know that someone in that building cares about them and wants them to be there today and wants them to be there tomorrow and wants them to be successful, not just this year, but successful in life. I mean, that is our goal, is we want them to be independent, but we also want them to go apply for a job at Dondelinger and have the skills to complete that job application and sit through an interview and all of those things. Show up at work, be on time, problem solve, work through those things, because that's also what learning is all about. And that's what we're working towards.
Sometimes in regular education, we talk about attendance rate, we talk about absenteeism. Programs like the Lincoln Education Center, the Alternative Education Center, whatever, we see remarkable patterns of attendance changing in most of those kids significantly. And as Kevin said, it truly is, and as you indicate, Amy, they feel comfortable, they feel accepted, they feel belong, just like Riverside. And these are kids that have significant absentee and other areas of concern that they're trying to address. So we need to learn from
I think we could do a lot of
programs.
learning from the students as well.
yeah.
We do a lot of learning from our students every day.
Yep.
I love that the goals are focusing on growth, because just that's so much more reinforcing than the ultimate score, that you're just going to celebrate the growth that those students.
Well, it certainly is more, I know that the MCA scores are very important, and I understand that reading and math is obviously very important, and those are things that we are doing every single day, but it's also helpful for the students to see that the hard work that they're doing is paying off, and that they are, you know, over half of them made growth over the course of the year. And we're hoping that the more that they can see their own growth, that the more students will also show growth. So. Anything else?
Thanks, Amy.
Thank you.
Thanks, Amy.
All right, our final presenter in the CIP installment is Andrea Rusk, principal of Brainerd High School.
Hello, everyone. I'm going to briefly share with you our 4 goals from the 23-24 school year. First goal was one that we are required to have in the state of Minnesota, either a literacy goal or math goal, and that was the MCA's. Our goal last year was 61 in 23 to 64.2 in 24. And we did not meet that this past year, but we were really close. One of the challenges we face when kids get into high school is that we cannot require them to take the assessment, but I'm very proud of our staff because they take it very seriously, preparing the student for the assessments, both in reading, math, and then also we have an MCA in science. And so that is always on our radar in watching students and getting them to take the test seriously and give it their best effort. We talk about it's an indicator, especially for those students that want to go on after high school and how well they'll do. Goal 2, focusing on MTSS Tier 1. Now, Director Donlinger talked about MTSS before, but Tier 1 is core instruction. And that's what we are looking at to ensure all students are learning at grade level to close those achievement gaps. Our third goal is using FastBridge, which is a tool, as we know, to measure student growth, to ensure all students are learning at grade level, closing those achievement gaps also at the high school, which is sometimes very challenging to do. The older they get, the less apt they are to show tremendous growth from one year to the next. And then goal 4 is increasing student attendance through improved communications. Our staff sees that when students are failing, most often it is not academic ability, it's attendance. And we have struggled with that over the last couple years especially. But we as a staff collectively know that that is critical for student success. So we are looking at some additional supports to put into place. Wish there was a magic program that we could purchase or be gifted, but it's going to take a really collaborative effort. We can provide great programming, outstanding staff, but we've got to have the students come through our doors and be engaged. If you look to our goals for this year, we have a literacy goal, which is our 9th and 10th grade students that are identified as high risk on the FastBridge tool in the fall administration will improve their benchmark level to some risk or low risk at the conclusion of the spring assessment. And for those of you that are familiar with grade 9 and 10 English courses, they're not targeting reading. So that makes it an additional challenge to high school English teachers who have been trained in writing and in literature, composition. But our English teachers have taken on that challenge this year and are working weekly to take a look at kids who are not, they've been identified and they haven't shown that they're proficient in reading. And so they're meeting weekly to collaborate and to provide some interventions for them so that they'll be prepared for the 10th grade MCA test. A continued goal this year is student attendance. Our goal is to increase communication and to also put some systems into place that will hold students and even parents and guardians a little more accountable to having their students in school. Our data dig here, as you can see, is will identify, define, and communicate Tier 1 core instruction for every course. I've heard the word transparency used here, and we used it just last week when we got gathered as a staff. All of our teachers at the high school during our continuous improvement plan day is they went back together in their teams and worked on their course outlines. And course outlines are in place, but they reviewed them together, made sure that they were up to date and ready to be published on our district curriculum page. And that is a commitment that we make to our community so that if they want to know what's being taught in world history, or they want to know what's being taught in intermediate algebra or in English 12, we will have a course outline. And that's where it starts, is a clear guide to what the students will be learning. And just as a response, Director Donlinger, maybe I misheard you, but I think you made a reference before into handing out grades. And I would say that I'd want to know about it if anyone's getting handed a grade or a credit. I'm really proud of the fact that we set high standards for our students academically. And all of our course guideline, our course outlines are transparent. So any one of you can see it, talk with us about what kids are expected to know and do. And we also are, we have a grading policy that came before the board a number of years ago. I think it was back in 2016. We came here to the school board to ensure that we had a grading policy that reflected that the students would have to demonstrate knowledge targets and performance targets. And we ensure that our staff communicate that to parents and students so they know that they're progressing. And we have minimum targets for them, to meet in order to earn credit for all of our courses at Brainerd High School.
Can you drive down a little bit, Andrea, on your increasing student attendance, communication and systems?
Great, that's a good, yes, of course. And student attendance is recorded hourly. And if a student does not show up at school, we have what I call a robocall, but we communicate twice a day with families to make sure that they know their student is not in school. And actually, just recently, I had a parent call me. She actually came in and talked about that. When she got that call, she went tracking down her daughter, who was truant, gone from school. And so I think that opens up the communication when they get that call, not as an alarm to them, but just as an awareness piece that they're not in first hour. They weren't in second hour. I think the communication that we send out monthly to parents in a newsletter, we talk about our attendance procedures and that it is an obligation, responsibility of a parent or guardian to call in and or use our Skyward system to excuse absences. And our staff have been trained to, and through the work of Christina Lundgren and others at the district level, we as a district have discussed what are we excusing? What are we allowing as an excuse? I think there might be a perception from some parents, as I'm the parent, I can excuse them. And indeed, they can provide an excuse. We decide if it's an excused absence. And I think that clarity helps out with, not thinking that I'm gonna take my kid shopping, and again, it's kind of it's a tough one because kids have to be in school to be successful. They really do. They have to be engaged in front of teachers, and so we also have some other supports in place, not just the communication and the expectation that they're in school, but if they're having a hardship of getting to school, we're asking the questions of what's preventing you from getting to school. We're fortunate to have 1.5 FTE of collaborative worker, 1.5 collaborative workers that serve our high school students. And what they do is they take a different approach. We may, as an administrator, take the approach of administrative, here's our school policy, you need to have your student in school. A collaborative worker can come in and develop a relationship with the student and with the parent and find out what are the barriers for that student getting to school. And what we oftentimes see is that there's been a pattern of truancy or poor attendance for a number of years. It's not often that they start in high school.
Thank you.
Andrea?
Yeah.
I've read a lot of stuff about this attendance deal, and so I'm just asking your opinion. I'm not expecting you to know, but isn't this like absenteeism just go through the roof after COVID?
Mm-hmm.
Well, why would that, I mean, what do you think is causing that? I mean, why does it change? I mean, what happened? What, people just got used to everybody staying home all day long and people weren't going to work or what
I
happened?
think so. I think that for a period of time, this is Andrea's opinion, so just know
That's what I
that-
was asking for.
But I've read a little bit on the attendance, and you're right, it's not Brainerd High School, and it's not Minnesota.
it's everywhere.
It's across. And I think that even employment patterns change too, with people wanting to work at home and not go into work, and they're like, I like to be at home. And I'm not criticizing or judging that, I'm just thinking that our world kind of shifted there. And I think our students, they had some formative years where that structure of going to school and that system that was just predictable was not predictable. And I
Threw them all off.
it did, and we're trying to bring them back and get them into a pattern.
Do you notice that this, I suppose it's not in the high school, but Christina, do you notice that the new kids that are coming in, the new kindergartners, first graders and second graders that didn't experience that, are they having lower absenteeism numbers? Like, are we starting to get?
That's a great
back up
question.
on it?
That's a great question. I think that one thing that's changed is that the reasons for absenteeism, I've done this a long time, so the reasons is many times mental health. So when we talk about SEL, families are calling in and saying, my students, I just had an email half hour ago from a dad saying, can we meet because I can't get my kid to come to school? And it's a sophomore at Brainerd High School and very capable, but again, they're asking for help. So I think it's us working together. We've got to get parents and guardians at the table. We've worked closely with the county, Crow Wing County, over the years. Their resources have diminished. When I first started here, we had an actual county worker in the high school working, and now we are really struggling to kind of have those resources. But we're still trying to be creative. We've got the collaborative workers. We've got a program through CLC, a grant-funded program called TRIO, which is encouraging first-generation students who to go to college. So we're trying to engage with those students to stay in school, take rigorous courses, see themselves as college potential, if that's the pathway they want to go down.
That TRIO program has a heck of a director.
Yeah, indeed. And so yeah, that's my 2 cents on that.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, I don't know why I would find it interesting, but it kind of interests me. There's got to be something going. I mean, it's like,
Well, it's
seems
the
like
same thing
something
in the
that we could get
workforce.
through.
The data's out there.
Well, that's ending though.
Well, it's ending because the employer has the ability to force it to end.
Well, it's ending because there is no productivity.
Right,
It's
but
not
what
a
I'm saying is
healthy-
an employer can require, you can fire somebody. We can't fire students for not showing up.
No, I understand.
And I would say this, one of the other things I think is important, and we've worked really hard on this too, is the enrollment at Brainerd High School, is we know we're not the only show in town. And we know that 20 years ago, when I just started here, we were pretty much the only show in town. So we have worked hard to maybe provide comprehensive programming to meet the needs of all the students, whatever pathway they want to go down, college or go right to the workforce, or now we're working on internships and apprenticeships at the high school. But I think that's it, is that people think if you really have a strict policy on attendance, I'll go somewhere else. We've talked about that with the cell phone policy, Mr. Grant and I, about kids and their feedback about cell phones. So I think that's something too we have to be cognizant about.
Competition.
Mm-hmm.
Like you win.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sandra.
Thanks, Andrea.
And thank you, Christina.
Christina, thank you.
Christine, yes.
All right, let's slide on over into new business. Up first would be the approval for retire policy 808, COVID-19 face covering.
Motion.
Director Heidman will,
Second.
never mind, we're good.
I was gonna say.
Just for the benefit of the public that's watching, it's obviously an obsolete policy, so we're taking it off the books. We have a motion from Director Donler and a rapid second from Director Spear. Any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Motion carries. Along a similar theme, the approval to retire policy 540, just a tiny little bit of backstory here. There was just a chunk of language in there that's in use in the current student handbook for the district. That's not, or wasn't present in the policy 525? 24. And so that's being rectified, so we can retire this one and it's good to go.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Okay, go ahead.
All right, so we have a motion from Director Brecken with a second from Director Dondelinger to retire policy 540. Any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Approval of policy 524, I guess I should have read ahead. Internet acceptable use and safety policy. So there, we put the language from 540 that needed to be in there, and otherwise this is the one that we've been looking at. This is a broader policy that covers, and Director Heidman, jump in and help me if I stray. It's not just cell phone. There's a cell phone section in there, so instead of 540, which was separate and distinct to cell phones, it's now folded in to 524, as we've been talking about the last couple times we talked about this.
Correct, and if you guys would have read your packet, 524, the title of the policy has changed. It is technology, internet technology and cell phone, so cell phone wasn't buried away, you know, we still have policy regarding cell phones. And my only concern, and I raised it at the policy meeting, and I still see the language in here, and personally, I don't like it, but when we look at the respect for educational environment, we talk about cell phones in the classroom shall be silenced. I still don't know what the hell that means. Silenced. And I asked the question, I think it should be changed. I would like it to be changed to powered off or whatever, to make sure people understand what we're talking about here. Because my understanding, I'm not very good with tech, and I think we were talking that, a person can have their cell phone powered in a bag, away from everybody, but they can still do some things that they maybe shouldn't be doing because they're using their cell phone.
Well, it has the ability for certain types of watches, like certain Apple watches are tethered to the phone, so if it's still on, then certain watches have their own cell connections, and certain watches are connected and tethered to the phone. So I think, Carrie and Ali, you were in that meeting too. I mean, I think we talked about using the word off instead of. Can I drag you up here? You thought you were gonna get the night off.
No, I'm later up on
Oh, okay.
It just bothers me.
It won't stop some of it, but again, what we're trying to do is mitigate where we can and again, there's always gonna be, every mousetrap we build, they're gonna figure out a way around them.
Hopefully.
So.
Feels like I got a little gumption.
Yeah, Chair Boyles, member of the school board, Superintendent Grant. I remember the conversation. I don't remember that there was a decision made to say off, but we are certainly welcome, or you're certainly welcome to have us take this policy back and make revisions and bring it to you again if it's not to your liking.
Do you think it's realistic?
Off and out of sight?
Well, out of sight's obviously pretty easy.
Yeah, the preferred language from the direction that the legislature is providing us and what the professional organizations are providing us is off and out of sight.
So they're recommending you go off.
Yep.
What the heck do we have to lose?
Is there a reason why we chose silenced instead?
I think that's just a carryover from where it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it was there, and I just.
It was not a strategic choice.
I think the chair dropped the ball.
Or staff.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Or the director of schools, maybe. I don't
No,
know.
Look at that
we
class you were in,
did
little
talk about it, and I personally, to be honest with you, I trust staff. You'll make the change. I don't think we need to hold up the approval.
No, but you could get a motion to
Yeah.
approve the policy with that
that
revision,
change.
and we could just sail through it that way if that's what you want to do.
Yeah.
Do it.
That's what I would like to see. I mean, I'd like to see, does anyone have language they would like to see instead of silenced? Powered off, or what?
I'd like to see it consistent with what Director Ross is saying, that is coming out from
Was it off and out
professional
of sight?
organizations.
Out of sight.
Off and out of sight.
Powered off?
It just, the language we've been given is off and out of sight. You can editorialize, that's your authority.
I mean, you could argue airplane mode equals off and out of sight.
Well, airplane mode would be just fine.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. It's not powered all the way down, but it's not producing anything.
It would be connected to
I mean, they would get reminders, like calendar reminders or something like that, but they couldn't get texts or.
Right, that's the deal.
I don't want to make a big deal out. It's just, let's just.
It's just hard to concentrate if you've got stuff that's going. Try watching.
Cut to the chase.
Yeah.
Off and out of sight.
Off and out of sight. I asked him to make the motion. I'll make the motion. I'd like to make a motion that we approve policy 524 with a couple language changes that say off and out of sight instead of silence.
Second.
How's that, Kevin?
Absolutely perfect. You're getting a shirt.
Aye.
We have a motion with the amended language to approve the policy 524 as presented from Director Donnelly, seconded by Director Spear. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thanks, Director Ross.
Yes.
Next up, we have the third and final reading of policy 435, access to employee mailboxes and school district internal systems. No substantive changes from the second reading on this one that I can recall.
Make a motion to approve. I'll second.
We have a motion from Director Spear with a second from Director Brecken to approve the policy and its third and final reading as presented. Any further discussion?
More of a question, Mr. Chair. Is this language or this whole policy, does it have the blessings of the teachers union?
I want to make a comment about that, Randy. It's not their input, it's administrative.
No, I understand that, Superintendent. I was just curious, I mean, they were involved with some of the language, weren't they?
Right, but we don't need their approval.
Okay.
This is to stop from the mess that we got into.
No, understand.
Okay.
Okay, cool.
Mr. Chair, I'll just, for Director Heidemann's question, yes, they're fine.
Cool.
Aye.
Zach?
Did we make a motion?
We got a motion.
Oh, okay.
We have a second. We're discussing.
Yep, discussion. So with hearing no further discussion, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Motion.
Next up is the approval for the policy 906, notification of predatory offenders. Nothing super fancy here. It's just a little bizarre. The policy, is sort of like window dressing because in reality, the functional way that this process works is we're notified by law enforcement and the policy almost reads the opposite way. But it's a policy we really need to have and didn't have before. And it'll go through 2 more readings.
So do you need a motion? I'll make the motion.
Second.
So we have a motion from Director Donnellinger with a second from Director Ward to approve the first reading of MSBA Policy 906, Community Notification of Predatory Offenders. Any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Approval of student representative on committees application.
So moved.
I'll second.
The two that made the committee made the deal up.
For the benefit of those watching, this is an ongoing thing where we're allowing now through high school students to apply to be on school board committees or sitting on school board committee meetings. Am I saying that correctly?
I think so.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
So I've got a couple things, if it's okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
One is, I think we should I don't think we need 2. I think it's a lot to ask from these kids anyways. I don't know why we want 2. It's just gonna slow down, the work that's getting done on those committees, and there's principals and administrators and us that are at these things, and I don't think we need to make them last too much longer. And number 2 is, I don't like the application, where it keeps asking what your leadership positions are. So I'm 15 years old, I'm interested in school finance, I'm interested in whatever it is, and you keep asking me about my leadership. Well, do I have to be the captain of the basketball team? The president of the student council? Are we just gonna pick from a few people that have all this leadership experience? Or are we trying to teach them how to be future leaders? We have 6 committees. So if we had 6 kids in the fall and 6 kids in the spring, I don't know how many are gonna be interested in this. I just don't understand why it's like, I mean, if you look at the application like I did today, it's like the first question's about tell us about your leadership roles. The next question number 2, tell us about your leadership and that deal. I don't understand why if I was a 15-year-old kid, 16-year-old kid, and I saw that, I might just be like, oh, I haven't had any leadership deal. They're never gonna pick me. I'm not gonna fill the thing out. And for all we know, it could be the one that could benefit the most from it. And I don't think we should be alienating these kids. So I'd like to see us switch the little application up a little bit, and then I think we should just have 1 kid. We might have trouble getting 2 kids that wanna miss school and, you know. But other than that, I'm all for it. It's like a great idea.
A lot of the work was, Mr. Chair, a lot of the work was done by, Reese. And we also used templates from other places to pull together the information and the forms and everything else or whatever. So we can make those changes.
I'm really fine with the question being, what is your interest in this committee?
I think so.
As opposed to what are, because I agree that could definitely alienate some people who might not feel.
And I don't blame Reese.
Questions in a row. The first one is summarize your involvement in BHS extracurricular activities. Be sure to include any leadership roles held. And then the next question is summarize your involvement in community-based activities. Be sure to include any leadership roles held. That's what you're talking about. So that's the only 2 places where that's referenced.
If it's Reese, she's the leader of everything. So it's gonna look pretty, I mean, you know, I get it. But, you know, I just don't think we should, I don't understand what importance that has with us anyway.
But to your point,
They're
you
young
could
kids.
just take that out and it's.
It doesn't disqualify them because they
No,
don't
it
put
doesn't.
something down.
But it might scare them.
Well, then they probably shouldn't be applying if it's gonna scare them.
Oh, that's true.
We were trying to grow, let alone bring in. Because I mean, if I was 15 and I was gonna do this, it's a pretty gutsy move for a 15-year-old. And if they're willing to do that, more power to them.
Well, I would have been able to put down that I was the captain of the safety patrol, and I was the president of the student council at Nisswa School for a while, so that'd be my leadership roles. I would have been able to qualify. But I just don't know that every kid has that opportunity, you know? So.
Has there been any more discussion? I thought we talked about moving committee meetings over to the
Yeah, we
large
would do that.
conference room.
So we don't pull them out of the building.
So we don't pull the kids out of the, yeah.
Right.
That makes sense.
And that's still,
So it's kinda like we wanna grow our own, don't we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's a,
So
Anyway,
the action on my item, as I understand it, is we're actually approving the application itself. So this is a germane and relevant conversation. We just have to have a motion that either wants to edit that, be sure to include leadership's roles held, removed, or intact.
Do we actually have to even vote on this?
Do we what?
Do we actually even have to vote on it? Couldn't it just be more of an administrative deal for Peter and his team?
I mean, we've deliberately put it as an action item, so we could vote on it.
Okay.
I'd like to ask, Andrea, do you have any input on this? Do you have any suggestions?
No, we can remove that. I think being something there for them to fill out is good. And I think bringing it to the high school is also good.
Okay, thank you.
I kind of like the idea of 2 students. I just think they'd be maybe more confident if they weren't the sole person sitting on that team. So
Yeah,
I
I'd say
like the idea.
So it's been my experience with the equity task force, when there's a couple kids there, they really kind of pull stuff out of each other.
I think it's a great idea. Because I know we had discussion about sitting somebody at the board table. And this is what came out of this, is that, based on,
That's right.
I'm not gonna take kudos, but I was the one who brought up the idea of committees.
Well, then, there we
And,
go. Then why don't you make the motion?
I think it's a great idea. It's already been motioned.
No, it hasn't. Oh, yes, it has. I'm
Yes,
sorry,
it
we have
has.
Director Ward and a second from Director Brecken. Any
look at
further
that.
discussion?
You've roasted
Look at
us
you.
over here.
Would you pay attention?
I'm too busy looking at Kevin's shirt.
Do we need to amend the language to amend the,
Yeah, so
I don't
we need
think
to
we-
amend the motion
amend the motion to amend the language?
to remove the reference to the leadership roles to those, in those 2 questions.
I would say, in my opinion, I I think we should move forward with what it is, and then
Then
we need
you
to
guys
tweak
can
it.
figure it out. Peter,
We can tweak
Andrea,
it.
whoever, you guys deal with it.
Okay.
Fine with me.
Figure it out, it's an
Any further
administrative
discussion
thing. Right, I mean, I'm not gonna get in that lane.
Yep,
I
all
don't
right.
wanna be in that lane.
Hearing no further relevant discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Please.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
You having fun?
Can we take a 2-minute break there, Chairman?
5-minute recess?
Yep,
5-minute recess.
thanks.
We're back.
Did you get the thing to have?
And we have just three more action items. So we have approval to sell property ID 41361077 to Buffalo Hills acreage and to use Close Converse as the listing agent. So Jeff, if you want to come on up, and Marcy? Don't think there will be a ton of questions, but.
I've got great answers, there are. Hello.
Great.
Any questions?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
There's nothing to talk about here.
No, I mean, the short answer is we're finally going to list the 20 acres that's over there in Buffalo Hills and start the process of trying to liquidate that and get some revenue back off.
Well,
of
and
it.
this came up at the finance meeting, and DJ made the point that Converse, you know, sells commercial property. And so there was two agents that were interested, but Converse is you know, is the commercial Converse agency.
Did we hear anything from the city of Braden? Because they have property right next to it, correct?
Yeah, I believe so. Tim Trimble from, that's trying to start a low-income housing project. He's interested in, once it gets listed, to see what they can do.
Cool.
But other than that, I haven't heard anybody else that's interested.
Yeah, I mean, the city will have to be involved at whatever point, because there's a little thing that has to happen to be able to create proper access for housing that would be built back there.
Right.
There's been talks about that with the city.
Yeah. I mean, what I would say is I don't want to speak for the city, but they seem poised to do whatever needs to happen. They would really like to see that developed.
Yep.
Cool. Any other questions for Jeff? Any further discussion? We have a motion from Director Donnelly and a second from Director Ward. With no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Those same sign. Motion carries. All right. Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you.
Excellent job. Next action item is the approval of the 2025-26 and 2026-27 school year calendars as presented in draft format.
They are presented in draft form. Mr. Chair, members of the board, Superintendent Grant, I have for you the next two school year calendars for approval tonight. The 25-26 school year calendar and the 26-27 school year calendar. A couple of things I'd like to point out is this year we had 9 in-service days to accommodate learning for OLA and some of those activities. Next year, we're proposing to go back to a lower number of in-service days. We've increased the student contact days from 165 this year to 169 for next year, and still within the 184 teacher contract days. You'll also notice a change to kindergarten. Previously, we've had kindergarten testing in the summer with Kinder Camp. It's a big burden and a big ask for our kindergarten teachers to give up almost 8 additional days of their summer vacation to do the assessment and the Kinder Camp. So we'll be moving that to the first 2 days of school for kindergarten testing, and then kindergarten classes will start that Thursday of that first week. We can do this in part because we have fast bridge assessments now, which are much more efficient and give us a wide variety of data that we can use to do that and give our kindergarten teachers more summer vacation. We've attempted to balance the semesters and accommodate all of the needs to have a couple of built-in snow days, with the premise that if we plan for it, we won't need them. So that's our hope. Any questions about these two calendars that you have before you?
So the 165 student contact days going to 169?
Correct.
That means the kids will be in school 4 more days?
Correct.
That's gotta help a little bit, doesn't it?
Yeah, we think so. We like kids to come to school, yeah.
Was it the year before?
I don't have
thought it was
that for you,
163.
Director Brecken.
It's
At the minimum.
It's
I think it's been
163.
169.
It's for high school, it's clock hours. It's
Yeah.
different for different grade groups.
But they lost a few days this year because of the
Added in-service
added
days.
in-service days for science of reading training.
So we'll have 169 next year and 168 the following year.
I just want to make sure I understand. We're going to be voting on a draft? Or are we voting for final?
It's a draft until you approve it.
Okay, that's my question, because I don't understand why we would even consider 26, 27. It's 2 years from now.
It
I mean,
is
Not
common.
a thing, I mean, obviously, it could change.
Sure. It is common practice to do 2 years at a time. It's convenient for families, it's convenient for staff. If we can do 2 years of planning at a time, which is why we're offering to you this evening.
Subject, obviously, to change, because we revised this year's.
We did, but it could, because there was some legislative requirements that we weren't aware of.
Okay.
We try to avoid making changes if at all possible,
Okay.
but that certainly could be something that we'd have to consider.
So is this just kind of policy that you kind of do 2 in a year, or is it a state requirement?
It's not a state requirement, it's just common practice to be courteous to the community.
So it's neither, it's not a policy or a requirement. It's
I
just
would
what
say,
we do.
Randy, considering the amount of work put into this, you don't want to do it every year. It's kind of a pain.
Well, no, I understand. I mean, just look back to last year though, too. I mean, I get it. I understand. I was just looking at this saying, God, 2 years, well, a lot of stuff could change. Okay. No, I
Because
understand.
it's not the first one, it's not gonna start till
I know.
this time next year.
Yeah. Okay. You sold me.
Director Ward?
Mr. Chair, I also want to thank Carrie and Superintendent Grant and Kelly and Ollie. I'm always asked the same question a lot that Randy asked tonight. You know, the certified staff okay with that or whatever, or any of our staff. And I did reach out to the certified staff, and they're good with this these 2-year calendar.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
We also reached out to our educational assistants leadership.
Thank you.
As well.
Curious, Director Ross, so when you mentioned moving the kindergarten testing to the first few days of school, does that mean the elimination then of kinder camp altogether?
Correct.
Are they replacing it with anything?
We're not replacing it. We are just working with our kindergarten teachers to revise some of our kindergarten programming for the first couple of weeks of school. We think that it's a good move, and we want to be more proactive with getting kids into school and getting timely assessments rather than continuing past practice for the sake of continuing past practice.
That makes sense.
I like that.
I know from experience with my own kids, what a wonderful thing kinder camp was, to not have any other kids at the school.
Yeah.
Kindergartners get in there and get acclimated and.
Yeah. There is an opportunity, as Principal Bjorgi talked about earlier, with leadership positions in some of our elementary schools to have big kids, you know, kind of be a buddy and a shepherd for little kids as they go through their first couple of days. So we're exploring all of those options.
I would think there'd be a fairly significant cost savings to not having.
Correct. Yep, a significant cost savings.
It's much more efficient.
Mm-hmm.
So, lots of school districts do it this way.
Okay. And the other question I have for you, just because I got this question and I didn't have a very good answer, was the day after Thanksgiving break that we come back to an in-service, why that's not the Wednesday previous and it's the Monday instead?
So we went back and forth with that in committee, and that was actually a recommendation that Superintendent Grant brought to us to consider Wednesday instead of Monday. Part of that is because the collaboration that we have with our early childhood staff, it's easier to do in-service days on Mondays with their schedule. And either way, it's a 5-day weekend for families. So we thought it's hard to always learn new things when you're thinking about, did I forget to take out the turkey? Or, you know, what's the weather gonna be like if I have to travel to grandma's house? But staff will be refreshed from their long weekend and be able to engage in the learning that we provide.
That makes sense. Thanks.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
We have a motion from Director Heidman with a second from Director Spear to approve the 2025-26 and 26-27 calendars as presented. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Last action item is approval to adopt the BHS Leadership Elective course as presented. And
There's actually
oh, we have two more action items, I'm sorry. So we have Jason Fried and Christina Lundgren coming up, and then we have,
So I'm just going to do a quick introduction to the last two items. So the leadership course and the English 10 novel were presented at our district advisory committee on October 28th. And that committee is made up of parents, community members, staff members, and school board members. So that group had an opportunity to hear the presentation, ask questions, and then at our follow-up meeting on November 18th, that committee continued the conversation and had some really good discussion about these two items. And following the presentation and the follow-up discussion, that committee did vote to recommend to move both of these items to the school board for approval. So what you're seeing tonight is a summary version of the presentation that was provided at DAC. So our first presenter, Jason Fried, presenting on leadership. You can have.
Thanks for having me. I'm just here to present on a potential leadership course at Brainerd High School. And I just got 5 simple slides here, but I guess the first thing I'll start with is the quote that's up there. And it's that leaders don't create followers, they create more leaders. And I think we've heard that tonight is the importance of leadership and building leaders in our community. And as someone who's been in education for 22 years as a teacher and a coach and advisor and having opportunities, we oftentimes are, as teachers, kind of bound always having to teach our standards and our curriculum. And sometimes we don't get those opportunities to maybe teach leadership as much as we'd maybe like. And so that's a lot where this idea came from, and is to be able to have an opportunity as to why a leadership course, to create obviously engagement, interaction with students at BHS, but also grow and give these kids a chance to grow some skill sets that are going to help them when they leave Brainerd, whether it's going out to college, whether it's going in the career workforce, whether it's going to the military, and eventually obviously being working people in our society. So things such as communication skills, building confidence, public speaking, problem solving, mentorship, servant leadership, self-awareness. I mean, really, it's. I guess what I would say is it's not a boxed thing. Leadership is not a boxed curriculum. It is, everybody has their own path in leadership and how they become leaders. And I think we have an opportunity to impact 14, 15, 16, 17, 18-year-old, and hopefully, obviously you guys mentioned tonight the opportunity to partake with the school board and do different things. And so I think there's just an opportunity for future growth and potential once they leave Brainerd High School. Goals for the course would be to grow student involvement and have students see it as something that they know will be impactful for them, obviously within their day, but once they leave. Obviously it's open to all and any students at Brainerd High School, not just pigeonholed to certain people. Is something I think we could even partner with our Career Pathways program at the high school. Potential of recognizing leaderships, whether it's community service, servant projects, and even tie into graduation. And I think it has the opportunity to be something that it could be a real bucket filler for some students every single day, and to get a chance to get in there and have great discussions and build their leadership skills. Obviously the goal, it could be a semester course, could be a year-long course. I think a year-long course has the chance to be a very impactful thing. You get them for 18 weeks, you hope it sticks. You get it from 36 weeks, you build really, great habits. 21 days to make a great habit. I can only imagine what 36 weeks could do. I think it gets, obviously kids engaged socially as somebody who is in the field. I think the social aspect of things is coming back with students. I think the effects of COVID there were pretty impactful right away when it comes to just that social interactions, but I see it coming back more and more. And I think this course has the opportunity to really have an opportunity to have just that social interaction and real discussion and real just quality discussion with students. I think there's the effect, the goal to make it a trickle-down effect. Obviously, these leaders affect these kids, and these kids affect these kids, and it really grows and kind of has that trickle-down effect from the top. And then also, I think the big thing is just community engagement, getting out in our community, bringing in guest speakers, bringing in administrators, bringing in people from our community, people from other places. Obviously with the day and age of education and technology, we have the opportunity for virtual meetings and presentations. We could bring in various people throughout. It's kind of, like I said, it's really much an open slate when it comes to that. I think I mentioned servant leadership.
as well as, getting the students out, talking to people, talking to different leaders in our community, and really kind of seeing what leadership can entail beyond the walls of Brainerd High School. Learning targets, I kind of broken down into potential 2 different semesters. From a curriculum standpoint, there's a lot of stuff out there. Jostens provides a really good kind of foundational curriculum, but I see the curriculum really being something that is a combination of a variety of different resources. As you can see up there, there's just a variety of topics. I don't necessarily need to go through, I think, all of them, but that would kind of be what a pacing might look like for a 1-semester course, as well as then enhancing a 2-semester course, incorporating things such as servant leadership, getting into public speaking, larger projects, just a variety of topics that would come into play as growing as a leader. In terms of course assessments, I think it's a unique class in the sense that, it's not a multiple choice kind of test, right? It's a chance to possibly read some different, leadership style books, look at different collaborative individual projects, servant leadership, community service, mentor, finding potential mentors in our community for them to work with and work through the various types of things. And so I see it being a lot of reflection, a lot of project type things, based course rather than a traditional type of, multiple choice type of test. It'd be, I think, a lot of writing, and then just a lot of reflection. And then in terms, like I said, I resource the curriculum. I kind of mentioned this a little bit already. Jostens, another one, a really good one is called Lead for Change. And that actually ties into even potential grant dollars to put towards servant projects within our community. And so I guess the only real potential purchase of curriculum would be looking at some different leadership books. So for the opportunity to have like book studies and such within the course throughout the semester. So potentially, 1 or 2 books within a semester. Otherwise, all other costs and things like that would be things that we bring in from other places. Questions?
Were you thinking Lou Holtz and Nick Saban?
There's a lot of people out there. A lot of people.
They can be your Zoom calls.
Yeah.
So is this an elective?
Yes, it would be an elective.
So it doesn't fill any boxes for like you need a social studies or a math or any of that stuff? It's
Just a general, yep, just a general
Just a
elective.
general?
Yep.
Coach, I think this is absolutely, again, fantastic.
Thank you.
Some people say leaders are born, but leaders can also be learned.
I agree with that. I think even more so in today's, where we're at even more. I think the old saying, used to, natural born leaders, I think you find those people here and there, but I really think it's something you can teach people to do.
And you don't have to be a leader in everything. In some cases, you might be a leader, and in other cases, you're a follower.
Correct.
And I think teaching kids, this is about life. I liked some of the stuff in there, public speaking. My gosh, I remember, speaking in my first time about 8,000 years ago. It's tough, but after a while, it's just second nature. I think this is fantastic. I'm all for it.
Mr. Chair, Jason, just like Director Hedman said, I'm all for it too. It's this was a passion of mine when I was an educator. I did a class called Service Learning that I put kids out in the community, and the one thing that I really would like to emphasize is community connection, and group projects. Whether you bring the kids to a confidence learning center, as I didn't see do you have a number that of kids that you would take at a class?
That would be, I guess, a question for the registrar and Ms. Rusk.
Okay.
In terms of what it would take to a certain number to actually run
10,
the class.
20, 30, that's what I'm saying. So a lot of those kind of projects, group kind of projects, pay off big dividends too when these kids are learning this kind of information. So I would really emphasize connecting to the community with group projects and that kind of stuff too.
You'd be teaching this class?
Yep.
Love it.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
We have a motion from Director Donnelly and a second from Director Brecken. Do we have any further questions or discussion? Go ahead.
When would this start? The next school year?
Next fall.
Next fall.
Yeah, because I think registration is in February, March. Yep.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good luck.
Thank you.
All right, next up, we have English 10 novel selection. This is the last action item.
You guys have been waiting. Thanks. What am I doing? I see.
Thank you.
Paper copy if anyone wants to see it.
It's what?
Paper copy of the book if anyone wants to pass it around.
Okay.
Peruse it.
Here,
I kind of read part of it.
here.
Thank you for having us tonight. My name is Carla Shepard Johnson.
I'm Alan Hewitt, English teacher at the high school.
And both Alan and I teach English 10, so we are hoping to implement this into our courses. And I have taught at BHS for 13 years. I also direct the plays after school. I'm a PLC leader and a mentor to new English teachers.
And I guess I need to read the part that I've been here 32 years.
We got
Head
you.
of the English department. I just want Director Ward to know I'm ready for about a 45-minute lecture, so you need to stay awake, okay?
And we would like to implement the book, The Hate List. And 2 teachers have previously taught this book at Brainerd High School with administrative approval. And the book had great success in the classroom, and students were really engaged during the unit when it had been previously taught at BHS. Our learning goals are to provide a new engaging text that sophomores in 2024 can relate to and see themselves in this piece of literature. And then also to, of course, encourage critical thinking, personal connection to the text, and also have powerful discussions while fostering critical analysis as well.
Minnesota Department of Ed is realigning the English curriculum, implementing new standards for 2025. And what you see up there, you start to see the new ones that we've selected for this novel. They're not all that different, the ones that we're taking a look at that, but you can see there's reading, writing, and language, and then speaking and listening and research. All those areas would be covered within the context of teaching this novel.
As far as the text complexity, you can see it's more lengthier text, 416 pages. Lexile level is 760. It's recommended for grade 10 and ages 15 years and up.
Some of the themes that we think that students are going to be able to identify is the idea, the characters are high school students in this book, which is always nice when we can get the readers connected with the individuals in the books. Power words, we're talking about bullying earlier, the consequences of bullying and the complexities of mental health. We were talking about that as well earlier. So it's a book that covers a lot of really modern kind of issues that our students and our families are going through.
The overall theme of this book is the power of forgiveness, and the ending is really about healing, and not only how students can heal after something like a school shooting, but also the staff members and also community members. And it also really encourages the power of empathy and thinking, like Alan said, about what we say and how that impacts others and how we can use our words to create a positive world and to help others as opposed to negativity.
You can see that the identities with the characters within the novel are student body. That's what they are. That's athletes, scholars, lower class students, upper class students, engaged students, disengaged students. It's most public high schools in the country.
a big topic that's addressed is people of lower socioeconomic status. And we put the statistic there because many of our students can relate to that. And the rate in 2023 to 2024 school year was ISD 181 for your reduced lunch rate was 46.02% of our students relate to that. And I think that's really important because in my opinion, a lot of times that is left out in literature, and I think that would be important for our students to see themselves in the text that we're reading. And like Alan said, bullying and depression, and then us versus them, especially in the context of the media and how the media was embellishing some things that happened, and the students were saying, well, that's not actually how it happened. And then also family dynamics, just with parents and social media and that effect.
Any questions?
Is this something we vote on? Like, why do we have to approve this book? I'm not picking on you, I'm just curious. Is this thing like outside of our normal boundaries or something, or do you just wanna make us aware of this?
The whole class novel, we haven't shifted for a while, so we're just walking through.
What do you normally do?
Process.
What's the normal
What was
process for this class? Like you go through 3 different books or something, or?
Two whole class novels throughout the school year in English 10.
Is this just be one for the whole year? 'Cause it's so
No.
long.
There's nothing.
This would be a replacement of one that we previously had taught.
So I'm still confused why we're looking at, I think it's a fine book. I looked it up today and kind of read about it a little bit. Seems
Are
pretty
you
relevant.
anticipating some
Pushback or something?
pushback or, nope, you're just informing us of this novel that you're choosing?
We're under the understanding this is the administrative process now to get a book approved like this.
It's part of their curriculum. It's probably a month of instruction around a whole class novel. So just as part of that process for curriculum approval, we bring it to the community members, which is DAC, District Advisory Committee. They have an opportunity to have conversation, ask questions, so representation of different perspectives from the community. And then they bring it as a recommendation for school board.
Is this a mandatory class that everybody has to take, or is this?
Yeah, this is.
So every kid will have to read this book? Well, supposedly.
Yeah, in English.
I mean, technically, if you had a parent that had a problem with the book, you have an alternate book.
Yes, we do for all of our whole class novels. Yes, we have alternate selections, definitely.
It's a little scary with the whole school shooting dealio.
Well,
That wouldn't bother me, but I could see somebody being a little afraid to go to school maybe.
yeah, all I can do is speak to what we talked about in the DAC committee meeting, and there were some people that were a little hesitant, including me. But Christina gave me a copy of the book, and I went home and read the
I think it'd be good for people.
first 100 pages or so, because that's where if there was any real controversy, it appeared that that's where it would show up. And the title itself, Hate List, I mean, you can't judge a book by its cover. Because it's a great setting. And
Well, it might help with this bullying.
It's a
is.
really good book.
Yeah,
I read
it is.
through it too, and I thought the themes are so relatable and so relevant, and just the struggle between right and wrong and the media bias. There's so many just really good topics.
And I also think it
discussion.
reflects how we've changed at the schools over the years. And if we go back to your football analogy, 35 years ago, somebody got hurt on the football field, had to rub some dirt on it and push them back out there.
Yeah.
Okay, 35 years ago, we didn't deal with mental health the way we do. We've really done a great deal of work with that, getting staff trained and administrators trained and everything, and dealing with it instead of hiding it, dealing with the issues. And we would think this is going to be a good resource for us.
Oh, great.
Are those other books that are, you referenced in your current class, do they cover these topics? Bullying, all of the topics that you talked about?
Born a Crime does.
Born a Crime by Trevor Noah. It's a memoir about his life. He had lived through apartheid.
But you feel this book really directs many, many more social issues that our kids are facing now.
Well, we also teach Macbeth in this class. I think this is a little closer to where the kids are than what Macbeth is. I love Macbeth. But Macbeth ends in a very different way than the hate list does.
I appreciate the fact that you're bringing forward curriculum that impacts our kids right now and talks about it and discusses it and gives them an opportunity to talk about it and discuss it. Great,
As a
great
department,
job.
we're excited about
Great
adding
job.
the read.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'd like to make a motion that we approve the English 10 novel selection. the hit
Second.
list.
Great. So we have a motion from Director Brecken and a second from Director Heidemann. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Got
Thank
yourself a
you.
new book.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure.
All right, we'll move along to informational update on Brainerd Public Schools Foundation from Director Spear.
We did not meet this month, but we had an event last night, and it was awesome. It was sold out, and we're all on the edge of our seats to see where it ends up. But just a phenomenal turnout from staff and community, and just a reiteration of the great support that we have for the district out there. So it was awesome.
And nice job last night, School Foundation at the bingo,
Yeah,
Thank you.
even if I didn't win.
even if you didn't win.
All right, Director Brecken with the Equity Task Force update.
So we're continuing to focus on small messages that we can get to principals to share in their buildings. This month, we were focusing on checking in to see how the interrupter poster campaign is going and what additional support that staff might need to keep this going, with the idea that we're working towards safe and welcoming spaces in our classrooms and our buildings.
Great, thank you. Marcy with the Business Services Report.
So the enrollment report is in your packet, and I just wanted to address last month, there was a concern about the drop in high school, and speaking with Principal Rusk, she did review the data and shared that there were 8 that had moved out of the district. That was the highest one, and then the other were homeschool and on Minnesota Connections Academy. So just brief update on last month's. And then looking at this month's, we're down 42 from the beginning of the school year. The 6-year average since we started this was we were down 35. So we're right on track, kind of. And then in the financial report, I have nothing to note unless there's any questions.
The enrollment report, do we know why the 8 families left?
They've moved out, like they are
Moved out, okay.
They're gone.
They're
Yep.
gone from the district.
Yep, they did not go to any of the surrounding districts.
Thanks, Marcy.
Any other questions for Marcy? Thanks, Marcy. Superintendent's report.
I really don't have much other than, since it's your party tonight. Kevin, I want to thank you. First of all, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you. That's not necessarily good. Maybe, but no. I'm very, very thankful for the short time I've gotten to knowing you, and it's interesting because it began with like a 3-minute phone call. And I've become quite fond of you. And it's been a really good time working with you. And now that you are going off the board, that means you can sit out in the gallery and keep an eye on us if you choose to. But thank you for your leadership. And a lot of people said some very nice words about you. I've worked with a lot of board chairs, and you're right up there. It has been fun working with you. And I appreciate all the support you've given me. And the conversations that we had that got longer and longer, I figured pretty soon, we're going to sit down and meet. Because we never knew each other, but we only did by phone. But thank you very much for what you've done for the district. And it's been a true honor to work with you, and I appreciate it very much.
Thank you. I guess with that in mind, I did have a little something I was gonna say. I was gonna keep it brief, believe it or not.
Want some action on it?
What, you wanna?
Over, under? What do you think, Ward?
No, I have a couple things to say, and then I have something I'd like to read, because the reality is, it's just, there are, like everybody that runs for these things 4 years ago, I think my head was full of all these things I was gonna do. And I think the first thing that you learn as a new school board member is that no one of us does much of anything. That this is as much of a team as you'll ever be of anything, and this team performs at its best when there's a little bit of tension, and when there's a little bit of difference in ideas, as long as that's got a backbone of respect and dignity behind it. And I've been fortunate enough in the last 4 years to serve with 10 different board members and 3 superintendents, and a lot of administrators. And I'll say it again, one more time, this is an amazing school district. And this board is an amazing board. And what's gonna happen next is all the rest of you are gonna come back in a month, and Director Ederman will come in with a head full of ideas and a heart full of passion for her version of what she thinks public education should be about. And I think you're all gonna do a really great job. I think we've laid a lot, especially over the last 2 years, a lot of tracks, because we got all that background noise of the construction, all that background noise from COVID, and all that stuff out of the way. So the work that you can do in conjunction with Mr. Grant and his team, which are outstanding, I love every one of you guys, you've been fantastic. But the district itself is only one side of a coin, right? You can't have a coin that only has one side. Coins have 2 sides. The other side of that coin is the parents and the community. And what I've noticed, especially over the last year or so, is that the community, not as much the parents, we'll talk about them in a second, haven't probably held up their bargain as much as the board and the district has. The community needs to do, I think, can do a better job. Not everybody, just globally, needs to do a better job of understanding the challenges that are facing this district and will continue to face this district, and to get behind and push and get behind and support as much as you can. There's nothing wrong with challenging stuff, don't get me wrong. And on the parental side, it's just sort of something that's happened. I mean, I've seen it, and I'm not running for re-election, obviously, again, so I can say it. We have a certain percentage of our parents that treat their kids like laundry. They drop them off at the schools kind of dirty and disheveled and want to pick them up folded and clean. And it doesn't really work like that. We need, for reading to improve, the parents have to work with the kids at home. For behavior on buses to improve, the parents have to reinforce what the school is asking. For all of those things to happen, the parents have to be involved. So I'm hopeful that because all that background noise is behind us, that this board, because it's diverse and it's connected well to the community, and you're all really smart, really passionate people, that you're gonna do a great job of continuing to engage so we can increase attendance, reduce bullying, understand that social emotional learning, while it can maybe sometimes be taken too far, is integral. Kids can't learn if they're upset and being picked on and don't understand how to interact with each other. So the reading really doesn't matter if you don't have the kids' behavior under control. So it's all part of that ecosystem. So I leave with the idea that I was part of something. I think I played an important role at an important time, when there was a lot of turmoil in this board, and a lot of turmoil, and so I take a little heart in that. But in the end, I was just one of you, right? And I think, steal some words from Ted Lasso, it was never about me. It's about all of you, and about all of you, and about our 1,200 staff that do an amazing job every day, day in and day out. And so to have been part of the bridge that gets us from that old world where there were less challenges, through the COVID mess and through all of these things, to kind of position us to be more thoughtful and modern in the way we think as a board to take on those challenges, I think I'll always be proud of that. And so that's kind of what I take away from this whole thing. So what I wanted to do to kind of close out my career was, I don't know how appropriate it is, but I have a couple of these educators that were here tonight, a couple are in the room now. About 6 years ago, well, let me go back a step and then I'll keep this as brief as I can. When I started this little journey 4 years ago, there were a lot of reasons that I did it, and they weren't all the right reasons at first. But what I learned was you know, there are right things to do on a school board. And when I walked in here the first night, I was like, okay, there are 3 people that I really want to make proud of me. And the first one is my wife, who Irish exited about a half an hour ago. So Kelly, if you're watching at home, thanks for all the love and support. All joking aside, she's the only one that had front row seats to what I did for the last 4 years. She's the only one that saw me up at 3 o'clock in the morning rereading superintendent resumes and staring out the window trying to decide what to do. She's the only one that saw me upset when my integrity was challenged. It's the only time I've ever been upset since I've been on this board. I don't mind people disagreeing with my decisions and disliking me for what I say and what I do, but when they called my integrity into question, that was a bridge too far, and I'm never going to forgive those people for that. That's just how that goes. Second person, my mother. She died 12 years ago, but she was my idol. She was my lodestone. She was my compass. And so I've tried to do everything that I've done on this board to make her proud. And the third is a man, if you were there on the opening day of school this year, the staff welcome back, is an educator that profoundly impacted my life at Pillager, a guy named Charlie Johnson. He was my band director, but he was also more of a father to me than my own father was. So when people start to talk about this teachers need to stay in their lane and they need to do all this, we're asking them to do all this stuff they never used to have to do before. And one of those things is they serve these critical roles for these kids. And I was one of those kids. I would have been a very different person without him in my life. And he's in Arizona, he's retired, but he's probably watching right now. Charlie, I love you. You knocked on doors with me 4 years ago, and you're the idiot that got me to do this in the first place. So there you go. But 6 years ago, we lost another educator that I was very, very fond of. And I was out of town on business and unable to make his funeral. So I wrote basically a eulogy that went on a tribute wall that they made for this guy. And some of you might know him. His name was Dave Vietz. Dave was an English teacher in Pillager for a large number of years, and he died very suddenly on vacation 6 years ago. So I wrote this about Dave, and I want to read it just because I want it to be emblematic of how I feel about our 1,200 people, because we have 1,200 people that are just like this guy. So with your indulgence, I'd like to spend just a few more minutes and read this, and then I'll let you go home. Is that okay?
Yes.
Absolutely. Okay, so this is 6 years old, well before I was on the school board. I've struggled to find my voice as I attempt to contribute to a cascade of heartfelt and amazing tributes for Dave Vietz. Maybe it's because I'm concerned that he's hovering around somewhere in grading this piece. I sure hope I get at least a C on it. What strikes me the most about the tributes written thus far is how unique and individual they are, very much like the man himself. What I mean by that is that his true gift was that each of us had our own version of him. His relationships with us were like snowflakes, with no two being alike, and each of them uniquely beautiful in its own way. I could easily picture Dave as the town doctor had he come along a century earlier than he did. I could see him walking from house to house with his black leather bag, dispensing healing, wit, and wisdom to every household in Pillager. He knew something about everybody in town, had seen pretty much everyone reading this at our best and at our worst, met us all on common ground. He wove himself into the community in a way that had never been seen and will probably never be seen again. It didn't matter if you still lived in the general Pillager area or if you'd gone out into the world and done it all. Dave knew us all and gave us all equal respect, whether it was deserved or not. He was especially unique in how adept and capable he was at meeting all of us on equal footing. He was never above anyone, nor did he ever act that way. He sure as hell never was below anyone, and it was obvious that the material trappings, family status, and all of the other defining strata and community standing meant pretty much nothing to him. It didn't matter what clique you were part of or not, where you came from, how big or small your house was. Mr. Vietz treated us all with respect and derision in precise amounts. This is what made him sort of what I would call the knucklehead whisperer. He didn't seem to have the issues with those troublesome kids that gave most of the other teachers fits. His ability to be self-deprecating and yet deal out sarcastic rejoinders was something that I only just now see for the masterful artistry that it was. No doubt, my Mr. Vietz is very different than everyone else's. I graduated in 1986 and hadn't had him as a teacher since 9th grade. I vividly remember a Hagar the Horrible comic strip that he had taped up by the wall in his desk for years. Basically, it was two disheveled Viking types looking at a guy holding a protest sign and wondering what all the fuss was about because they couldn't read the sign. The sign said, "Stamp out illiteracy, learn to read." I laugh out loud now as I write this because in a nutshell, that was Dave, a master of irony, wit, and subtle sarcasm paired with a gruff love for his profession and his students. My Mr. Veets could talk about things like Broadway theater, classic poetry, prose, art, history, and other lofty intellectual subject matter. He clearly knew what was out in the world outside of Pillager. But he could also talk about sports, auto mechanics, the latest Dukes of Hazzard episode, deer hunting, and any other of the items of local interest in Pillager in the early 1980s. I get the sense that he could have woven himself into any society on any location or any level, but he was definitely where he wanted to be. At first blush, it would be easy to say that he could have gone to a much bigger town or city and been so much more. I submit that it's possible for any human being to become, I submit that it's impossible for any human being to become more than what he was. In a way, most of us who were his students are like messages that he wrote over the years and placed in bottles and threw them into the sea. Only now at his passing have those bottles washed up on shore, a veritable tsunami of accolades for a man who made one of the most difficult jobs in the world seem effortless as he impacted hundreds and hundreds of lives. The best tribute that I can think of is for each of us to pick up the flag that fell when Dave fell and carry it forward as best we can. I will try harder to cast my own messages into the sea, though my efforts will be quite inferior to those of the master. I should think that he expects no less than that from each of us. My deepest condolences to his family and close friends. When a light this bright is extinguished, we have to hope that it is, in fact, not extinguished, but it's been sent somewhere else to light the path for others that are in dire need. Thank you for sharing him for all of those years, and please let all these tributes fill a small section of the empty space inside of you now. He was a great man, a great teacher, and perhaps the best citizen that the town of Pillager has ever seen. Thank you for being you, Mr. Veets. Godspeed on your next journey. Thank you for your indulgence. I read that again because scattered throughout ISD 181, there are hundreds and hundreds of people having that same impact on our students and our community. And they deserve our respect and our support. And I know this board will continue to do that. And I've enjoyed serving with every single one of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you.
I really wanted you to be able to have the last word, but you jumped in too quickly.
Is this an action item?
Apologies. But truly, Kevin, and I have to look at you when I say this, you came into this organization and you wanted to push vehemently for communication. And you have been a shining example of what that looks like done well. So thank you. And I think, I can't look at you on a card. You have taught us how to collaborate. You come into a room with curiosity and wonder, and you want us to do well. And you're open-minded about it. And you find the common ground. So thank you. Not only that, sorry. But you're such a cheerleader for this district. You have taught us how to offer support and challenge gracefully while bringing out the best in the school and our community. Thank you. And I'm gonna stop. All right, so you waited a long time for one of these.
Oh my goodness.
This is what folks get when they've left their impact on our district the way you have. Once a warrior, always a warrior. There's more in there, but that's the important piece. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, goodness.
I make a motion. What was that word you used in there? Darasol or something like that? I mean, it's like, can we just? I think he's pretty proud of you for writing that one, Kevin. You did a pretty good job on that, baby. I think he would have got an A on that little deal you read there.
Thank you.
A+.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
If you gave pluses,
I don't know how you do it, but that's impressive.
Absolutely. I just want to say too, thank you for mentoring me. You taught me a lot of things, and you will be missed.
Yes, you will. 3 rookies to deal with.
4.
Well, Sarah had a few months under her belt. She was a pro by the time we got
I
here.
mean, really.
All right, so do we need to do committee meeting updates?
No.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion to amend the
Aye.
agenda.
We have a motion from Director Donlinger and a second from Director Ward to adjourn this meeting. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We are adjourned. Thank you.
Hot dog.